Chapter 757. The spaceship entered the private port of the Army headquarters and slid into Han Zhao's personal port. This port was not open to ordinary Army members and was the back door for the upper echelons. It was not as lively as the other dozens of ports. This place was rather quiet and had a solemn atmosphere. Dozens of upper echelons were gathered at the port. They had been waiting there for a long time with solemn expressions. Among them, there were many Calamity-grade supers fighting on the front lines. Due to the rumors of Han Zhao advancing to the beyond Grade A realm, the situation of the secret war took a strange turn. The two sides had been fighting for months, but as soon as this news came out, both sides tacitly gathered their troops and reduced the number of battles. Everyone began to observe the situation, and the Black Star Corps was also able to withdraw their officers. Both sides knew that if both sides had beyond grade as the direction of the war would not be something they could decide. Although Han Zhao did not appear, the influence of him becoming a beyond grade A affected the situation of the secret war. The cabin door opened, and Han Zhao walked out. The gazes of all the officers, including Sylvia, gathered on him. Their eyes were filled with excitement, joy, and anticipation. The officers sized up Han Zhao. Although there were no obvious changes in his appearance, everyone could feel a faint pressure. This was a natural suppression that originated from the difference in life form. Everyone looked at each other with strange expressions. They then looked at Fu Ding behind Han Zhao. Fu Ding smiled and nodded to everyone. Han Zhao stepped onto the port, glanced at everyone, nodded slightly, and walked forward. The officers made a path for Han Zhao to pass through. They then followed behind him and entered the army. The group came to the army commander's office in the headquarters. Sylvia was the last to enter. After closing the door, Han Zhao then turned to face everyone, nodded, and said, "I know that you're all very curious about whether the rumors outside are true. I've been sending out notices to all of you. Now, I can tell you in person that the rumors are true. I'm already a beyond Grade A super." When the crowd heard Han Zhao's confirmation, their tense faces immediately relaxed. Some of them were ecstatic, while others were envious. Sylvia and Haluz were the most excited. The two of them were the most loyal to Han Zhao and had long been tied to the Black Star Corps. Reynold could not wait to ask Han Zhao for advice on mechanical skills. He was very passionate about learning. Many of the Calamity-grade supers who had joined a few years ago were overjoyed. Back then, they had joined the Black Star Corps because of Han Zhao's reputation as a beyond Grade A seed. Their goal was to bet on his potential. If Han Zhao could become a true beyond Grade A one day, they would become the core members of a beyond Grade A organization. Now it seemed that this group of people had won the gamble. Their future was like a picture scroll that was unfolding, a smooth path. Vice Captain Lagi shook his head and sighed. "Now that you become a beyond Grade A, we will most likely be dragged into the vortex of beyond Grade A battles in the future. We will encounter stronger and stronger opponents, and I feel that my life is becoming less and less secure. I really want to step down from my position as Vice Captain. Reynold, is the logistics department still lacking people? Is there a more leisurely position?" Reynold was expressionless. "Sure, I happen to be lacking a high-level enchantment engineer. I'll give you a daily salary of 2,000 anas, and you'll work 15 hours a day with overtime occasionally. Do you want to give it a try?" "Forget it. Vice Captain is more suitable for me. I can get paid without working." "How great is that?" Han Zhao's veins bulged. "Talking about slacking in front of me, do you think I don't exist? By the way, where's Tomar, who I handed to you? How's his learning?" Lagi's expression became even more worried. This person was filled with negative energy, as though he would squat in the corner and draw circles at any moment. "Where did you find such a genius? He makes me feel that all my years of learning magic have been wasted. Indeed, I shouldn't have become a mage back then. All right, go to the side and shut yourself in." Han Zhao's mouth twitched. He calmed himself down, regained his serious expression, and spoke with a deep voice. "There are two main reasons why I've gathered everyone here today. The first is to inform you that I've already become a beyond Grade A super. I believe I don't need to emphasize the status of a beyond grade A super. Because of this, the business of the Black Star Corps will welcome an opportunity to expand far beyond the past, becoming a true beyond grade A organization and fighting against bloodshed land. When it came to serious matters, other than Lagi, who was still mumbling, the expressions of Sylvia and the other officers all became serious. This matter should be handled in a high-profile manner and let the entire Starfield remember my existence. Han Xiao raised a finger and waved it. However, due to certain reasons, it's not convenient for me to confirm that I've become a beyond grade A super for the time being, and I don't plan to make an announcement within the Army immediately. The announcement will have to be delayed for a period of time. However, personally admitting it is just a formality, and some organizations have already confirmed the authenticity of the rumors. Even if I don't make an announcement, they will definitely send various emissaries to contact us. Therefore, I need you to conceal it to a certain extent and contact these organizations that are interested in cooperating with us in private. Select the candidates and form a cooperative relationship. This matter involves the scale of our organization after becoming a beyond grade A super, so it's best to do it as soon as possible. As for the specifics, you're all veterans of the Army, so you should know. Everyone nodded. Wasn't it just a matter of establishing relationships? They had learned it from their Army commander long ago. Han Xiao raised a second finger. The second thing is to give you benefits. As he spoke, he took out the evolution cube and let it float in midair. He looked around and smiled. This is the evolution cube. That's right, it's the universal treasure in Cisco's hands. Due to some coincidences, I intercepted this item and fought with Cisco. Now, this item is in my hands. He then briefly explained the use of the evolution cube. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. They were dumbstruck. The outside world had heard rumors that Black Star and Cisco had fought, and there had always been people guessing why the two of them had fought. The officers of the Army were also very curious about this, but they did not expect the reason to be the evolution cube. The evolution cube had changed owners? In the hands of the Black Star Corps? One of the Calamity Grade officers, Missy Sec, swallowed his saliva and stuttered, "You mean to let us enjoy the effects of the evolution cube?" Han Xiao nodded and smiled. "I have already given it to Fu Ding and the others. Since the cube is in my hands, I will naturally treat it as a benefit for the Army. You are all the backbone of the Army, and helping you obtain stronger strength is beneficial to the Army." The Calamity Grade officers who had joined later were overjoyed. They did not expect to receive such benefits. For most of the Calamity Grades, any method to increase their strength was something they were extremely passionate about. Lagi also did not remain silent. He suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Han Zhao's hand with a serious expression. "As your deputy commander, I have the duty to remind you that the order of enjoying benefits should be based on the rank of the Army. I have sweated and bled for the Army, and I am still the deputy commander who is only below you. You know what I mean." Han Xiao shook off his hand and glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. "I admit that you've sweated for the Army, but it's hard to say if you've bled before." Lagi immediately clutched his chest and said with a weak expression, "Actually, I was seriously injured at the front lines. Go away. You will not lose out on benefits anyway." Han Xiao was not in a good mood and did not want to talk nonsense with him anymore. "You lie down the moment we talk about work, but you jump up and down the moment we talk about benefits. You are really getting more and more cunning." However, even a salted fish like Lagi, who was not interested in most things, was attracted by the evolution cube. It could be seen how tempting the benefits of the evolution cube were. The evolution cube was given to the officers for free, and Han Xiao did not intend to hide it from the other Army members. He planned to form an alliance with the Red Empire and completely protect the evolution cube before opening the usage of the evolution cube to the entire Army. According to the rank of the Army members, as long as they spent enough merit, they would be able to enjoy the benefits of the evolution cube and increase the combat strength of the Army members. This would also attract countless supers to join the Army. At the same time, this was a new service for the players. The 40% experience penalty was only used to level up, which was not a big problem for the players. As long as they used the evolution cube after reaching the level limit of the version, the experience penalty would be the same as if there was no experience penalty. Even if the players could not help but use the evolution cube before reaching the level limit of the version, it would only benefit Han Xiao. Since there was a penalty for leveling up, the players would be more inclined to use the experience to improve their skills and learn knowledge. This would indirectly stimulate the player's desire to spend, and the experience that the players spent to learn knowledge would eventually flow into his pocket. It was perfect. Thinking of this, Han Xiao could not help but smile. Putting away his thoughts, he returned to the topic at hand and said, "That's basically it. I will use the evolution cube to help you optimize your genes in a while. Before that, I would like to announce a new personnel appointment." Hearing this, everyone quietened down. Han Xiao turned to look at Hela and said, "From today onwards, the Black Star Guards will be officially established, and Calamity grades will be selected to join. This will be an elite combat team that will only listen to my orders. They will not hold any other important positions and will have the authority of senior officer. Hela will be the first captain of the Black Star Guards. Does anyone have any objections?" Although beyond grade as did not need protection, they all had their own elite armed forces under them. For example, Heber's Vanguard Official, Austin's Forbidden Sorcerer, Cisco's Grand Priest, Ames's her Black Star Corps, beyond grade as rarely took action, mainly to intimidate others. Thus, Han Xiao also needed to build an elite armed force to deal with most situations on his behalf. Beyond grade as had their own beyond grade as, facing opponents who were not qualified, it was not suitable for them to personally take action. Hela took a step forward and looked around at everyone with an expressionless face. Who agrees? Who disagrees? Although Hela had only returned to the army for a few months, most of the old officers knew her and naturally did not have any objections. A portion of the Calamity grades who joined later also knew that she was the disciple of the Dragon Emperor, so they naturally would not question her ability. No one had any objections. Seeing this, Hela nodded slowly and returned to Han Zhao's side, not saying a word. "Fu Ding, are you interested in joining the Black Star Guards?" Han Xiao turned and asked. Fu Ding's position in the army had always been similar to that of a guest, but after spending a few months together, Han Xiao felt that the relationship between the two of them had warmed up, and he should be able to invite him to become a direct officer. Fu Ding tilted his head and thought for a while before revealing a warm smile. "All right, this guy is finally one of my people." Han Xiao was overjoyed. He then turned to look at the other officers and selected another 2 Calamity grade officers to join the Black Star Guards. One of them was Marion, who had joined earlier. The Black Star Guards now had 4 people and could be considered barely formed. This was just a prototype, and when the Beyond Grade A level was officially announced, the Black Star Guards would be recruited again. After talking about official matters, Han Xiao activated the Evolution Cube and performed gene optimization on all the officers at once. As long as the energy output of the Evolution Cube was adjusted, it would be able to optimize many people at the same time. After completing all this, Han Xiao told everyone to disperse and locked himself in the machinery modification room. He began to build Beyond Grade A combat equipment in seclusion. This was the most important mission at the moment. No matter what, strength was the foundation. The other chores had to be prioritized after recovering his combat strength. The Mech Legion, personal mechanical suits, firepower weapons, and so on all had to be rebuilt and updated with Beyond Grade A standards. He's already a Beyond Grade A Super. When Orochia returned to the room, Rista appeared in midair and spoke immediately. "He already has the ability to save our race. Orochia, you have to find time to talk to him." Orochia slowly shook her head. "At the very least, we have to wait for him to get through the current crisis. Before the Black Star Corps stabilizes, he won't help. Why don't we wait a little longer? I've already waited for a long time. Thinking about how my compatriots are being oppressed by Manison every day, I don't want to wait a moment longer." Rista was a little dissatisfied. "I can see that Black Star has been holding us back." Orochia calmly said, "I don't think that the 2 of us can make Black Star make up his mind to deal with another Beyond Grade A Super. She had already recovered her memories, and her past memories had completely merged with the current 3 personalities. She was still the same her, just not as muddle-headed. "If you're not willing, I'll find a time to ask him," Rista slowly said. "There will always be a way." After saying that, Rista cut off the connection and disappeared into thin air. The silence of the Black Star core did not cause the popularity of the star field to die down. Instead, it became even more mysterious, arousing the curiosity of even more people. Everyone guessed that Black Star's silence definitely had an unspeakable reason. There were many theories, but they all believed that Black Star would not remain silent forever. As the news continued to spread, the influence of the star field became even greater. In unknown places, many things were happening. Under such circumstances, more than half a month had passed. Han Xiao ended his seclusion. He had already created the embryonic form of the new army. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 758. Black Star Corps Headquarters, Private Machinery Factory. Dozens of army boxes were neatly stacked together, and hundreds of different models of mechanical soldiers were lined up in a row. From tall to short, from light to heavy, they were displayed before Han Zhao's eyes like an exhibition. 70% of the soldier types haven't been changed. Part of the new blueprints came from Sardine's accumulation, and they're basically all giant soldiers. The other part is new blueprints created through the fusion of knowledge. Although the knowledge hasn't been updated, as I became a beyond grade, new blueprint combinations were unlocked. The experience I've accumulated during this period should be enough to gamble on blueprints. Looking at the models of the mechanical soldiers with his hands behind his back, Han Xiao pondered. The update of a new army was mainly to create machines with better performance and reach the level of a beyond grade A super. The innovation of the models was secondary. Because of the lack of time, he did not have the means to learn the new knowledge. Therefore, most of the mechanical soldiers were still the old models, but their performance was much better than the previous generation of the army. With his increased intelligence, mechanical genius, and supreme power, the upper limit of the performance of the mechanical soldiers was raised by a lot. However, even if they were the old models, they were still the mechanical soldiers that Han Xiao had improved over the years. The designations of the ordinary armies were all restored, and the elite armies, such as the Oathkeepers and Illusionists, were also rebuilt. There are also many new units, such as the Giant Soldiers, the Star Destroyer Bombardment Group, the Black Knights, and so on. These were all new models of machinery. In terms of large firepower weapons, Han Xiao had modified the satellite strike weapon and other heavy cannons. Because he had yet to learn the relevant class knowledge, he had not been able to create a true planet destroyer cannon. However, the modified planet destroyer cannon's power was on par with the Ice Age star freezing cannon, and its penetrative and explosive power were stronger. It could not directly blow up a planet, but it would not be a problem to blow up a small continent. With firepower reaching the threshold of a beyond grade A, Han Xiao also built a new mechanical suit, replacing the original mountain ape. The new mecha was still mainly black in color. It was yellow and black and looked steady and heavy, like a ferocious beast that was growling. It had a rough and ferocious feel to it. The armor was made of a very expensive and special alloy, and it was further strengthened with nano-deformation technology. It had a certain self-healing ability, and its shape was changeable, and its defense was superior. Its strength was movement. It was equipped with a quick jump device and could use instant jump multiple times in battle to attack or retreat. It was extremely mobile. In terms of firepower, other than the conventional energy weapons and melee weapons, it had also strengthened the output power of the psionic furnace. The model of this mechanical suit was called Battle Tiger. The original mountain ape was a piece of equipment suitable for level 165, but this Battle Tiger was a level 215 orange equipment. Its performance was improved in all aspects. Its armor value was in the hundreds of thousands, and its power level was more than 1. Before he obtained the ultimate knowledge to create his own trump card battle armor, Han Xiao would temporarily use this mechanical suit to deal with beyond grade A battles. Among the supplementary abilities of the mechanical suit, there were many melee and charging abilities, mainly crushing strike, pounce, and grab. There was also a sonic attack named Tiger Roar, and so on. In terms of violence, it was above the mountain ape. Be it the power of the armor or the energy output, it was far higher than the mountain ape. It was a killing machine suitable for many battlefields. These machines have reached the beyond grade A combat level. As long as I stack them up, I will be able to fight normally. Han Xiao nodded. These were the normal combat methods of a beyond grade A mechanic. Some larger machines had not been built in time, such as Eternal Light and the new base. When he activated Secondary Dimension Army, he would be able to break through the restrictions of the compressed orbs. Then, he would not only be able to bring an army with him, but he would also be able to bring along large machines, such as satellite bases. Boom! At this moment, the room shook slightly. What's the situation? Han Zhao's eyes narrowed, and he contacted Philip. What happened? Someone forcefully broke through the defense line of the headquarters and landed on the surface of the headquarters satellite. I will now connect to the satellite image for you. The next moment, Han Zhao's vision changed, and he connected to the headquarters satellite. Looking down at the surface of the headquarters satellite from high up in the sky, he saw a man breaking through the defense line of the fleet and landing heavily on the surface, causing the headquarters to sound the alarm. Countless army soldiers swarmed out like a tide and surrounded this person. Seeing the appearance of this person, Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat. Hardaway, Master, your Black Star Guards have already rushed over. Do you want to deal with it personally? Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and suddenly raised his hand. The Battle Tiger mechanical suit turned into a stream of black particles and climbed onto his arm, turning into a bracelet. He then opened the door of the workshop and walked out. Inform Hela. Don't let him escape. I'll be there immediately. At the same time, around the Black Star Corps headquarters, hundreds of spaceships of various models were turning toward the headquarters and recording this scene with their cameras. These spaceships were news spaceships from many galactic media outlets. In order to find out the true state of Black Star and obtain first-hand information, they had been loitering here for more than half a month. However, they were blocked by the Black Star Corps' defense fleet and could only stay nearby. However, just a moment ago, a Calamity-grade super appeared and forcefully broke through the defense line of the Black Star Corps headquarters, landing on the surface of the headquarters satellite. This movement immediately attracted the attention of these galactic reporters, and everyone became alert. It was rumored that Black Star had become a beyond grade A, and someone had actually come to provoke him. These reporters were shocked, but through their keen sense of smell, they realized that this was an opportunity to dig up big news, so they all gathered together to watch. I know this person. His name is Hardaway. He appeared in the Secret War before and is from the Bloodshed Land. Could this be a provocation from the Bloodshed Land? Are they openly declaring war on the Black Star Corps? There's going to be a good show. At the entrance of the headquarters satellite, the army soldiers had already surrounded Hardaway, and countless cannons were aimed at him. However, Hardaway did not panic, patting his clothes and speaking loudly. I'm here to find your army commander. Your fleet won't let me in, so I can only force my way in. Because Han Xiao had given the order before he went into seclusion, he would not accept any visitors for the time being. These chores were all handed over to Sylvia and her Luz, and the defense fleet faithfully carried out this order. Even though Hardaway had announced his name, he did not receive any special treatment, so he had forced his way in. This was intentional. This time, a red light shot over from afar and landed in front of Hardaway. It was Hela. Don't move. Hela's face was cold, and her aura was overflowing with red light, attracting everyone's attention. Hardaway stopped in his tracks, sizing up Hela seriously. Who are you? Black Star Guards Captain Hela. Black Star Guards? Hardaway's eyes sparkled. I haven't been in a good state for the past few days, and I suddenly had a social engagement tonight. I only wrote half of today's post. I'll post the rest when I get home tonight. Sorry. Remember the mobile version of the website. 767 announce 1, page 1/1, Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 759. This was the first time Hardaway had heard of the Black Star Guards of the Black Star Corps. However, he was not unfamiliar with Hela. For a period of time, Han Shao had brought Hela to many front lines of the Secret War. Before Hardaway left Bloodshed Land, he had browsed through the intelligence on Hela. This was the first time they had met. He glanced around and saw that the army's warriors had blocked off all paths of retreat. Warships were floating above their heads. "Where's Black Star? I want to see him," Hardaway shouted. Hela acted as though she did not hear him and coldly said, "Our army commander is not someone you can meet just because you want to. Hadavi, you ambushed our army headquarters. Surrender immediately." Hearing this, Hardaway's gaze returned to Hela. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Otherwise, what? You're going to capture me?" "Who?" Hela had long since lost her patience. Hearing this, she brazenly took action. Blood-red energy gushed out and blasted into Hadavi's chest, sending him flying into the air and exploding in a circle of blood-red shockwaves. The light dissipated, and Hardaway floated in midair. His frivolous expression disappeared, and his expression became serious. As a famous Beyond grade, a seed in the Shattered Star Ring, an ordinary Calamity grade would not be able to hurt him at all. However, a casual attack from Hela had caused a portion of his body cells to lose their activity due to the impact of death energy. It was as though his life force had been sucked away. Although the damage was not great, it meant that the destructive power of this red-haired woman was not something an ordinary Calamity grade could compare to. After Hela had obtained the benefits of the Evolution Cube, her combat strength had increased significantly. Her destructive power had become even more shocking. The death energy could steal the target's activity and cause special damage. Even Hardaway could not completely block it, so he had no choice but to take it seriously. Bang! Hela stomped on the ground, creating a sonic boom, and charged into the sky. Dense death energy surged like a tsunami toward Hardaway. The two of them collided in the air and fought fiercely. Energy shock waves visible to the naked eye exploded one after another. The surrounding army warriors did not interfere and left a battlefield to watch the two of them fight. A portion of the Calamity grade officers who remained in the army raised their heads to look at the two figures chasing each other in the sky. They had no intention of helping. "Sylvia, are we really not going to interfere?" a Calamity grade officer asked. Sylvia shook her head and narrowed her eyes. The reason why His Excellency Black Star wants to form the Black Star Guards is not to protect himself, but to let the major powers know that he has an elite armed force under him. Hardaway is a powerful fellow, and as the captain of the Black Star Guards, as long as Hela doesn't lose, she will gain fame and create a first impression of the Black Star Guards for the major powers. But if we lose, won't we? Someone personally appointed by Teacher. Sylvia pursed her lips. She won't be defeated so easily. The scene of Hela and Hardaway fighting was recorded by the galactic news ships around them. These reporters watched the two of them fight without blinking, but they were already writing articles in their hands. They recorded the process of Hardaway barging into the Black Star Corps headquarters and how Black Star's Black Star Guards attacked. Bang, bang, bang. The two of them were both Calamity grades, and the commotion caused by their battle was not small. Hela trapped Hardaway within the encirclement and poured all her death energy on him. Although Hardaway's body-hardening Esper ability had been developed to a perverted level by him, being bombarded like this still left quite a few scars. It was not that he did not have a way to escape, but this time he was there to find Han Shao, so he naturally would not run away. The red waterfall condensed from death energy shot Hardaway down from the sky and smashed into the ground, creating a crater. Bang! Hardaway hurriedly bounced up and rolled forward to avoid Hela's follow-up attack. He then turned around and stared at Hela in surprise. Although Hela's attack was not enough to threaten his life, it had indeed put him in a difficult position. Hela's strength had shocked him. The Black Star Corps now had quite a few Calamity-grade officers. Previously, only Logie was able to make Hardaway feel pressure, and Hela was the second. There are more and more experts under Black Star, Hardaway thought. What a strong body. Hela frowned, and her hands intertwined as she prepared a big move. The death energy condensed on her body, and her entire person seemed to be burning with scarlet flames, so dense that it was almost tangible. The energy fluctuations quickly rose, and Hardaway's expression became serious. He got into a defensive posture, and the muscles under his skin moved like pythons before tightening like steel bars. The surrounding army members all retreated. The intense energy fluctuations showed that the aftershock of this attack was definitely not small. If they were too close, they might even be injured. At this critical moment, a deep voice sounded from behind the crowd. "Hela, stop!" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw Han Xiao slowly floating over. An invisible life-level pressure descended, and the place fell silent for a moment. Everyone's eyes were focused on Han Xiao. Hela heard this and snorted coldly. She retracted her death energy and landed behind Hardaway. The crowd opened up a path, and Han Xiao passed through the crowd to arrive in front of Hardaway. He raised his brows and said, "You wanted to see me?" In truth, he had arrived long ago and let Hela and Hardaway fight for a while before stopping the two of them. Just as Sylvia had guessed, since he had formed the Black Star Guards, he wanted to help Hela establish her reputation in the star field. Hardaway was a typical meat shield with weak attack power. With Hela's current strength, she would not be at a disadvantage for a while. This was the perfect opportunity to make a name for herself. The galactic reporters around were energized. The rumors had been circulating for so long, and this was the first time Black Star had appeared in the outside world. All the reporters' attention was on him. "You're finally out." Seeing Han Xiao appear, Hardaway's eyes flashed. This was the effect he wanted to achieve by forcing his way through. He said with a deep voice, "Do you still remember me? How could I forget you?" Han Xiao nodded with interest. "Aren't you from the Bloodshed Land? Are you provoking me by coming to my headquarters alone?" "I've already left the Bloodshed Land. This time, I'm here as a private individual," Hardaway explained. "Oh, then what's your goal?" "I want to challenge you as a private individual," Hardaway suddenly said loudly. "For this, I'm willing to use myself as the stake." Han Xiao was stunned, and his eyes were filled with suspicion. "What do you want?" "If I lose, I'm willing to join the Black Star Corps and work for you, just like how I once worked for the Bloodshed Land. If I win," Hardaway rolled his eyes, "I want you to become my subordinate." Hearing this, Han Xiaoxin could not help but laugh. He had already seen through Hardaway's true thoughts. This guy most likely came because he heard the rumors that I've already become a beyond grade A super. Knowing that I'm already a beyond grade A super, he still wants to challenge me. He probably has two goals. First, he wants to spar with a beyond grade A super. Seeing that we're old rivals, he probably thinks that I won't kill him. Second, he wants to become my subordinate if he loses. As for Hadavi's thoughts, Han Xiao had a rough idea. This person had always been aiming to reach the beyond grade A realm. Seeing that Han Xiao had reached this realm before him, he could not help but want to learn from him. If he joined Han Xiao, he would have a legitimate reason to ask Han Xiao. However, although Hardaway was tempted, he did not want to directly join the Black Star Corps because of his face. He also did not want to directly lower his head to this old rival of his. Thus, he put on a show and wanted to lose by challenging a beyond grade A super so that he could be accepted into the army to save his face. To Hardaway, losing was not shameful, but directly lowering his head made him feel ashamed. After pondering for a while, Han Xiao nodded. He did not expose Hardaway and agreed. When he was an opponent, Hardaway was extremely annoying. However, now that this super meat shield wanted to join him, he became a rare talent in his eyes. After all, there were very few beyond grade A seeds. Putting on a show and gaining a strong fighter, this deal was way too worth it. Furthermore, Han Xiao felt that he could use this opportunity to announce his beyond grade A strength to the star field by subduing Hardaway. With Hardaway's confirmation, his influence as a beyond grade A super would be even greater. He had already created the prototype of the new Mech Legion and could adapt to the battle between beyond grade As. Furthermore, the tyrant would not allow him to drag this out. Han Xiao knew the enemy's thoughts like the back of his hand. If this dragged on, Clint would announce that they did not dare to announce it because they were afraid of the tyrant. This would affect his influence as a beyond grade, a super, and indirectly increase the tyrant's deterrence. He had been silent for more than half a month, and Clint was already showing signs of doing so. He decided to avoid this situation before Clint's method took effect. Come. Han Xiao stopped thinking and stared Hardaway. Tiny sparks of electricity flowed around his body. Boom! Hardaway did not hold back. He stomped on the alloy floor and charged toward Han Xiao's chest like a cannonball. The muscles on his arms bulged, and explosive power flowed through his muscles. He punched out and went straight for Han Xiao's face. However, Hardaway's fist suddenly stopped 10 centimeters in front of Han Xiao. The wind created by the punch was like a sharp knife, making loud noises. However, Han Xiao did not even blink. At this moment, an arm covered in the Battle Tiger mechanical suit grabbed onto Hadavi's throat. The powerful impact did not even cause Han Xiao's arm to shake. Hadavi could not even move an inch after being grabbed by this arm. With a boost from the Beyond Grade A Super and the Evolution Cube, Han Xiao's attributes completely surpassed those of the Calamity Grade. Even Hardaway, who focused on his physical body, was not his opponent. Hardaway's forte was endurance, and strength was not his main attribute. He was pressed to the ground by Han Xiao's more than 3,000 points of strength. Hardaway's pupils constricted. Before he could react, the mechanical suit structure on Han Xiao's arm suddenly rotated, providing a powerful force. The spiral force followed Han Xiao's palm and blasted into Hardaway's body. A special vibration sound wave reverberated crazily in Hardaway's body through his skin, flesh, and bones. The frequency automatically adjusted to the resonant state, and a loud roar sounded in Hardaway's ears. It was as if all the sounds in the world were pouring into his ears at the same time. They were all sound waves produced by the vibrations of the organs and tissues in his body. Tiger roar. Restricting the special vibration sound wave within the target's body, directly using the target's body as a medium to form a special frequency vibration attack. The armor-piercing and vibration effects were extremely strong. It could be used in both close combat and long-range combat. In a vacuum environment, it could only be used in close combat. This was an attack device that Han Xiao had imitated Stephanie's Esper ability. Pooh! Hardaway spat out a mouthful of blood. Because it was not true damage, he was not immune. Immediately after, Han Xiao grabbed his throat with one hand and threw him to the ground. Bang! Hardaway smashed a hole in the ground and was embedded in it. Without waiting for him to get up, Han Xiao put his hands together, and a dazzling electric light flowed out of his body. The scattered mechanical force merged with the alloy surface. Rumble! The next moment, the alloy surface suddenly moved. A large piece of the surface was modified by mechanical force, forming a whirlpool-like shape with Hardaway firmly in the center. Layers of metal made the whirlpool rise, turning into a metal spiral mountain. The powerful pressure made Hardaway almost unable to move. Han Xiao snapped his fingers, and two planetary strike cannons opened up behind him. The muzzles were raised and locked onto Hardaway, who was controlled by the metal spiral mountain. If he fired from here, the energy cannons would shoot into outer space and would not destroy the headquarters. The muzzles of the cannons lit up, and an energy that made everyone's hair stand on end began to brew. My destructive power is completely different now, Han Xiao said slowly. If these two cannons hit you, you might be crippled. Admit defeat. Hardaway swallowed his saliva and was shocked. He had come to challenge Han Xiao because he wanted to see the difference between the Black Star and the Black Star of the past. In the end, he realized that the difference between the two of them had become a huge chasm. It seemed like he did not even have the qualifications to make Han Xiao take him seriously. Is this the change of a beyond grade, eh? Hardaway's heart became more and more excited. I admit defeat. Hardaway took a deep breath and decisively admitted defeat. Han Xiao had expected this and turned around without changing his expression. Ella, Take him down first. Clatter. The metal spiral mountain collapsed, and Hardaway landed on the ground. Hela immediately walked over and put on a pair of electromagnetic shackles. They did not have much effect and were mainly for show. She then escorted him into the army and left the scene. Han Xiao then turned around to look at the hundreds of news ships around him. He tilted his head and connected to the quantum network. The many reporters on the ships were recording and writing about how easily Han Xiao had subdued Hardaway. At this moment, every screen on every ship suddenly flashed, and Han Xiao's face appeared. Everyone was shocked. Then, Han Xiao's voice came from every screen. I know. You guys have been loitering nearby because you want to hear the recent rumors from me personally. Yes, I'm already a Beyond Grade A Super. Please help me officially announce it to the entire star field. As soon as he said that, Han Xiao disappeared from all the screens, and the original interface was restored. The mouths of the reporters were slightly agape. They quickly rushed to the porthole and looked at the Black Star Core satellite. Han Xiao had already turned around and entered the headquarters, leaving behind only his majestic back. It's confirmed. Black Star confirmed it himself. All the reporters were overjoyed. After waiting for so long, they finally got first-hand news. After all, rumors were limited. However, an official announcement was different. Rumors ignited the flames of curiosity in the entire star field, and Han Xiao personally announced his status to the entire star field. This was equivalent to pouring oil on the fire. By personally creating momentum, the influence of a new Beyond Grade A Super would reach the peak. Recommended book: Building a Ninja Village in the Devil Era. Take the Naruto mobile game system and travel through the Devil Era in Japan. Build a ninja village, recruit ninja families, and develop top-notch ninjutsu. Are you afraid when you see the 10-tailed Jinchuriki behind me? Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 760. Hardaway was brought to a room by Hela and tied to a chair. Hela stood at the side with her arms crossed, staring coldly at Hardaway. Wait here. Black Star will be here soon. Hardaway did not struggle and sat there for a while. As if he felt that the atmosphere was a little cold, he looked up at Hela and curiously asked, What's your Esper ability? I've been in the Shattered Star Ring for many years, but I've never heard of you before. An expert like you shouldn't be unknown. What civilization are you from? Hela ignored him and did not intend to answer. Hardaway laughed dryly and said, Seems like you don't like to communicate with people. This time, the door opened and Han Xiao walked in. He smiled and casually said, She's my compatriot. We're both Blue Star people. She's been training with Ames and only recently came out to help me. Dragon Emperor's student? Hardaway was stunned. He looked at Hela with envy. Blue Star was a surface civilization, and there were actually people like Black Star and Hela. Hardaway could not help but be surprised. Crack! Han Xiao moved his finger and removed the restraints on Hardaway. He suddenly said, Okay, you can go now. Hadavi was stunned, and his jaw dropped. You want me to leave? That's right. Han Xiao smiled. No matter what, we've fought so many times, and I recognize your strength. I'll let you go this time. Let's call off the bet. No. Hardaway stuttered. I'm a man of my word. Since I've lost, I'll definitely fulfill my promise and work for you. An expert like you shouldn't become someone subordinate because of this. Han Xiao held back his laughter and said seriously, I'm a Beyond Grade now, but I still have respect for a peak calamity grade super like you. I won't force you. Hadavi was so anxious that his face turned red. He had originally thought that his plan had succeeded, and he would be able to join Black Star through the bet. However, he did not expect that Black Star would reject him like this. Furthermore, the reason was so ridiculous that he did not know what to say. You. Hadavi stuttered, unable to open his mouth. Directly say that I want to work for Black Star? Hardaway felt a little embarrassed. However, walking away just like that was not in line with his goal. He was in a dilemma and did not know what to do. Seeing this, Han Xiao smiled and said, I won't tease you anymore. If you're willing to join the Black Star Corps, I'll welcome you very much. If you want to use such a clumsy trick to fool me, then let's not talk about it anymore. Hardaway's face turned red. You already know? His thoughts had been seen through. He was so embarrassed that he only wanted to find a hole to hide in. Even Gila, who was standing at the side expressionlessly, could not help but smile at this scene. Han Xiao raised his brows and said slowly, "Then, I'll officially invite you. Hardaway, my army needs you. Are you willing to join me?" Hardaway found it difficult to speak. His lips trembled as though he had used all his strength to squeeze out his answer. I'm willing." After saying it, Hardaway felt his entire body go soft. It was as though he had gone through 10 battles of life and death. "Okay." Han Xiao nodded and smiled. "On behalf of the army, I welcome you to join us." Seeing that Han Xiao was no longer teasing him, Hardaway heaved a sigh of relief. Suppressing the shame in his heart, he asked, "What position do you need me to take?" Han Xiao thought for a while before pointing at Hela. "You'll join the Black Star Guards and listen to her orders." With Hardaway's fame, joining the Black Star Guards would indirectly increase the prestige of the Black Star Guards. Black Star Guards? Hardaway scratched his neck. "All right, but I have a request. I hope you can impart some of your experience regarding the Beyond Grade A realm to me." Han Xiao nodded, then shook his head and pretended to be serious. "The advancement of every Beyond Grade A is different. Everyone has their own path, so I can't impart my experience to you. However, I'll allow you to spar with me and feel how extraordinary a Beyond Grade A is. It might give you some inspiration." "Is that so?" Hardaway nodded helplessly. "All right." Although it was a little different from what he had imagined, being able to spar with a Beyond Grade A super was in line with his expectations. He had always liked to squeeze out his potential through battle. Ordinary people would not be able to make him feel threatened, but facing Black Star, Hardaway would always recall the fear he felt when facing a wild beast when he was at his weakest. This fear was the best catalyst for his potential. Han Xiao waved his hands and told Hela to bring Hardaway to meet with his other companions. He now had a total of 5 Black Star Guards. Among them, Hela, Hardaway, and Fu Ding were the strongest. They were all high-level calamity grades. The other 2 were Marion and a pugilist called Deluno. Their combat strength was also extraordinary. Although they could not be considered big bosses among the calamity grade supers, they were at least at the level of small bosses. From this, it seemed that the members of the Black Star Guards were all elites. After dealing with Hardaway, Han Xiao called Sylvia over to discuss the expansion of the Black Star Corps. He had already personally announced the status of the Beyond Grade A super, so it was time for him to make a big move. He would use his influence to make allies in the star field and make the Black Star Corps reach the level of a true Beyond Grade A organization. However, before that, there was something that he had to deal with first. "Sylvia, help me prepare a fleet. I'm going out." "Okay. Where are you going, teacher?" "Floating Dragon Island." Han Xiao paused for a moment, and his tone was inexplicable. Countless galactic media outlets published the news that Han Xiao had personally announced that he was a Beyond Grade A super. In an instant, 95% of the news channels in the Shattered Star Ring were talking about this matter, setting off a new wave of public opinion in the star field. With the official news confirming it, this matter was already confirmed. During this period, almost all the media outlets in the Shattered Star Ring were flooded with this news. The galactic media outlets had many channels of communication, and it was not something that could be compared to rumors. With them spontaneously spreading the news, as long as there was a galactic resident in the village who had internet access, there was not a single person who did not know of Han Zhao's name. Similarly, such sensational news was also republished by the media outlets of the other star fields. The organizations of the other star fields also knew that a new Beyond Grade A super had appeared in the Shattered Star Ring. The forums of the players exploded because of this situation. Although Han Xiao often flooded the forums, that was only the discussions of the players. However, now, the players of the other star fields could actually see Han Zhao's name in the news channels of their own star field. The players of the other star fields could not help but be shocked. In version 3.0, the players had not started across star fields yet. In their eyes, each star field was like an independent server. However, a famous NPC in the Shattered Star Ring had actually crossed servers. Because Han Xiao had already established his main storyline status in the Shattered Star Ring over the past few versions, the players of the other star fields more or less knew of his name. This wave of public opinion aroused the interest of the other players. Han Xiao was not only flooding the forums of the Shattered Star Ring, but also the forums of the other star fields. He was one of the top 3 trending topics in all the channels. The official channels had their own rules, and the various organizations of the Shattered Star Ring also gave a public response. The upper echelons of the Amethyst civilization were very happy. More than 7 years ago, they had seen the potential that Han Xiao had displayed and decided to bet on him. Now, Black Star had become a true beyond grade A super, and the Amethyst civilization had a beyond grade A companion like Clint. Of the 7-star cluster civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring, only the 2 of them had such a powerful ally. Placing the bet in advance was undoubtedly a win. Most importantly, Black Star had only spent about 20 years or so to become a beyond grade A super, and he was not even 50 years old yet. In terms of the lifespan of a beyond grade A super, he was still a baby. To be able to become a beyond grade A super at such a young age, his potential was limitless. After Han Xiao personally confirmed it, the Amethyst civilization immediately took many measures to increase their investment in the Black Star core, increase their policies and resources. Their attitude became more serious, and they worked hard to build a more stable relationship with Han Xiao. At the same time, the Amethyst civilization also made an announcement to the entire star field through the media. In the name of the entire civilization, congratulations to Black Star for becoming a beyond grade A super. This action was to express their attitude to the entire star field, conveying the message that their alliance was extremely stable, and those who wanted to interfere should save their energy. Ghidorah did not want to fall behind and followed suit. Serbia V made a public speech, first talking about the various contributions that Han Xiao had made in Ghidorah, emphasizing that he was the recipient of the Golden Gal badge. Finally, on behalf of the entire Ghidorah, he congratulated Han Xiao for becoming a beyond grade A super. At the same time, he also revealed that they were preparing to add a new celebration in the civilization called Black Star Day to thank Han Xiao for everything that he had done for Ghidorah. This was already on the agenda. If it was any other civilization that made a Black Star Day, it would seem like they were trying to curry favor. However, Ghidorah was different. Han Xiao was deeply involved with Ghidorah, and whether it was the elimination of Dark Star or the discrimination transformation movement, it was of great significance to the entire civilization. Creating a celebration to thank Han Xiao was not out of line. As soon as Purple Crystal and Ghidorah expressed their stance, they immediately stirred up a hornet's nest. Hundreds of star system civilizations congratulated Han Xiao in the name of their civilization, forming a trend. These star system civilizations were all semi-allied civilizations that had chosen a rope in the Black Star core and provided them with the rights to develop resource planets. Now, they were fighting to be the first to express their stance, as if they were afraid that others would not know of their relationship with Black Star. The actions of these star system civilizations were actually understandable. The Amethyst civilization was the leader of the star cluster, and they started to promote Han Xiao. The other civilizations also wanted to maintain a good relationship with a beyond grade A super, so they also expressed their goodwill. However, this created a shocking scene for the onlookers. The civilizations of the Colton star cluster were all standing behind Black Star, cheering for him. The entire star cluster was celebrating for one person. This situation made countless onlookers dumbfounded. Black Star's reputation in the star cluster was actually this terrifying? When the other beyond grade as of the Shattered Star Ring were born, there had never been such a commotion. At this moment, the entire star field remembered Black Star. Like the other 4, he became the symbol of the Shattered Star Ring in everyone's hearts, the 5th beyond grade A super. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened, causing the influence of public opinion to soar to a whole new level. Heber the Tyrant and Cisco the Star Pupil publicly challenged Black Star. Heber's reason was the secret war. Since Purple Crystal had a beyond grade A, he had to take action. Both sides were representing Purple Crystal and Clint, so there was nothing wrong with it. However, Cisco's statement caused an uproar. He announced the information about the evolution cube to the entire star field and announced that Black Star had snatched the evolution cube from him, requesting Black Star to return it immediately. The evolution cube was in Black Star's hands? Two veteran beyond grade, as challenging a new beyond grade A super? These two pieces of news caused a huge commotion. The entire star field was in an uproar. Beyond grade, as we're going to publicly challenge each other? This was something that had not happened for many years. Just as the various organizations and onlookers in the Shattered Star Ring were shocked by these two pieces of news, Han Xiao had already arrived at Floating Dragon Island with his fleet. Chapter 761. Godly Mechanic. Taking a day off, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 762. Streams of light flashed, and a fleet of the Black Star Army appeared not far away from Floating Dragon Island. At the very front was Han Zhao's spaceship. Aurora sat in the driver's seat, and Han Xiao stood beside her with his hands behind his back. Behind them were Hela and the other Black Star guards. Floating Dragon now had 3 islands, and the second field team was guarding Floating Dragon. Looking at the scenery outside the porthole, Han Xiao felt a little emotional. I haven't been back for a while, and the changes are quite big. So many years have passed in the blink of an eye. I still remember the first time I came to Floating Dragon. Vilna's face appeared on the communication screen, and she went straight to the point. Your Excellency Black Star, Her Excellency Dragon Emperor is waiting for you. It seems like she was prepared for me to come and find her. Han Xiao nodded. The second field team opened up a path for the Black Star Corps fleet to land on the dock of Floating Dragon's main island. Black Star guards, follow me. The rest of you stand by. Han Xiao then led Hela and the others out of the spaceship and onto Floating Dragon Island. On the dock, Jenny and the other officers were already waiting. Your Excellency Black Star. The Floating Dragon officers all bowed. Although Han Xiao was once their colleague, Han Xiao had become a beyond grade A super, and his position in the galaxy far exceeded theirs. He was already a big boss on the same level as the Dragon Emperor, and they could only look up to him. Even Jenny, who had a bad relationship with Han Xiao, put away her emotions, lowered her head, and bowed respectfully. I knew you would come back sooner or later. Aesop walked out from the crowd with a complicated expression. This day still came. Han Xiao looked around and scanned the faces of his colleagues. He then looked back at Aesop and shook his head. Didn't you start preparing long ago? I just didn't expect it to be so sudden. Aesop sighed and turned to walk in front. Come with me. Ames is waiting for you. Han Xiao and the others followed behind Aesop and entered the Dragon Emperor's palace. When they arrived at the main hall, they saw Ames sitting on the floating dragon bone throne. Her expression was cold and emotionless. You're here, Black Star. I've been waiting for you, Ames said, as if she had expected this. Han Xiao stood dozens of meters away, while Aesop and the others who led the way returned to Ames's side. They were clearly separated from Han Zhao's group, as if there was an invisible barrier between them. The two of them did not speak immediately and just looked at each other in silence. The Black Star and Floating Dragon officers around them swallowed their saliva, and their hearts were in their throats. The officers of both sides knew the purpose of Han Zhao's visit this time. Seeing the tense atmosphere, they could not help but feel nervous, afraid that the two beyond grades would fight. The new Black Star guards, Hardaway, did not care about the inside story. He focused on sizing up Ames with an eager expression, and the battle-thirsty blood in his body flared up again. After looking at each other for more than a minute, Ames looked away and looked at Hela and Aurora behind Han Xiao. She softly said, How have you guys been in the past few months? Aurora didn't dare to meet Ames's gaze at this moment, so she lowered her head in shame. Hela dared to look at Ames directly and replied, "Not bad." Ames asked her two disciples about their well-being and ignored Han Xiao. Han Xiao did not mind and continued to watch from the side. The three of them chatted for a while, and Ames suddenly changed the topic. "You guys are all on his side?" Hela and Aurora's expressions changed slightly, and the others' hearts skipped a beat. Before they could say anything, Han Xiao waved his hand with his back facing the Black Star Guards. "Hela, take them away first. Let me talk to Ames alone." Hela secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She was not afraid of facing a strong enemy, but she did not want to face Ames, her teacher who had taught her for 10 years. Being sandwiched between Han Xiao and Ames made her feel very troubled. Ames tacitly allowed the Black Star Guards to leave. Upon seeing this, although Aesop was unwilling, he could only give Will Sander and the others a look and leave with his officers. Black Star wanting to establish his own faction was very normal in Aesop's eyes. If it were up to him, not only would he not stop it, he would even enthusiastically support it. Unfortunately, Ames was the one in charge. She had always been willful, and Black Star was the officer she had relied on the most. Aesop was worried that Ames' willfulness would turn a good thing into a bad thing. Only Han Xiao and Ames were left in the hall. Ames controlled the throne to land on the ground. Her long black dress dragged behind her as she walked in front of Han Xiao. Her beautiful eyes stared at Han Xiao, and her expression gradually became complicated. "When I first met you, I never thought that one day you would be on the same level as me." Hearing this, Han Xiao's eyes flashed. The memories of their first meeting more than 10 years ago resurfaced in his mind. At that time, Ames was high above, controlling his life and death. Compared to her, he was as small as a speck of dust. Today, more than 10 years later, he was standing in front of Ames as an equal. Everything is still in the process of development. Everything is possible. Han Xiao started with a materialistic argument right from the start. Ames smiled gently. "I know this feeling. A long time ago, I never thought that one day I would become a beyond grade." Han Xiao stroked his chin and did not speak. After pausing for a while, Ames asked in a tone as though she already knew the answer, "Why are you looking for me today?" "There are three main things." "Three?" Ames raised her brows slightly. "What's the first thing?" Han Xiao took out the evolution cube. "This treasure is in my hands now. I plan to let you and all the officers of Floating Dragon enjoy the evolution cube." Ames was a little surprised and did not answer immediately. Instead, she asked, "What's the second thing?" "I request to leave Floating Dragon and establish my own Black Star Corps," Han Xiao said directly without hesitation. "Humph, that's your main purpose today, right?" Ames snorted but was not angry. She had been mentally prepared for many years, but hearing Han Xiao say it personally still made her feel a little uncomfortable. She said expressionlessly, "I have a question to ask you." "Speak. Did you decide to leave me from the first day you joined Floating Dragon Island?" Ames stared at Han Xiao. When she visited the Black Star Corps headquarters a few years ago, she already knew that she was not suitable to be Han Xiao's leader. Now, she wanted to understand Han Xiao's thoughts. "Yes," Han Xiao replied honestly. From the beginning, he had seen Floating Dragon as a springboard. Even if it made Ames angry, he did not intend to lie to her. "I guess so too." Ames shook her head, a little sad. "To a talent like you, I'm indeed not a leader worth following." When the Black Star Corps was still developing, she did not realize this point. However, as the reputation of the Black Star Corps gradually replaced Floating Dragon, she felt more and more that she could not tie down a legendary figure like Han Xiao. Ames did not hesitate and did not try to persuade him to stay. She was not so weak, and her tone was firm. "Okay, I understand. From today onwards, Floating Dragon is Floating Dragon, and the Black Star Corps is the Black Star Corps. You are no longer my subordinate." The interface immediately notified him that he had left the Floating Dragon faction. Han Xiao let out a sigh of relief. From this moment onwards, the Black Star Corps would no longer listen to Floating Dragon and become an independent organization. Ames was expressionless as she calmly asked, "What's the third thing?" "I hope that the Black Star Corps will form an alliance with Floating Dragon," Han Xiao said, and that you will fight alongside me against Heber and Cisco." Hearing this, Aim's expression suddenly became strange. She had heard about the beyond grade A battle that had shaken the Shattered Star Ring recently, but she was surprised by Han Zhao's actions. "Since you want my help, why did you establish your own organization first? If you still stay on Floating Dragon, you know that I will definitely help you." Han Zhao smiled and said in a carefree tone, "I know, so I gave you a chance to choose." Ames was stunned for a moment before suddenly understanding what Han Zhao meant. Her expression became complicated. The way she saw it, if Han Zhao stayed on Floating Dragon, he could tie the two of them together and guarantee that she would help him deal with the other two beyond grade As. However, Han Zhao did not use his identity as an officer of Floating Dragon to do so, but established his own organization first before asking her for help. This meant that Han Zhao did not want to make use of her. Otherwise, he could have used Floating Dragon's strength to deal with Heber and Cisco first before establishing his own organization. This was equivalent to squeezing all of her value before leaving. In fact, before this meeting, Ames had considered this possibility. In fact, if Han Zhao really did so, she did not know if she would reject him or not. However, the direction he was taking now surprised her. "Aren't you afraid that I will reject you?" Ames suppressed the fluctuation in her heart and calmly said, "Fighting two alone, your life will be in danger. Aren't you worried that you won't be able to survive this?" Han Zhao smiled and said, "I believe you won't reject me." Ames' face darkened, and she coldly said, "You're no longer my subordinate, and I haven't agreed to form an alliance with you. Do you really think I care about you? Do you have some bargaining chip that I can't reject? Do you think you have me for sure? I get it. You want to use the evolution cube to convince me, and as long as I don't agree, you'll go back on your word? Whether you form an alliance or not, my promise is still valid." Han Zhao shook his head and said, "This is the first thing I mentioned before I left Floating Dragon. As an officer of Floating Dragon, I will provide you with the benefits of the evolution cube. I don't intend to use it as a bargaining chip. You can use it as my compensation to thank Floating Dragon for taking care of me for so many years." Ames sized Han Zhao up with a strange expression, as though she did not recognize him anymore. "In my impression, you're not such a person." In her eyes, the order in which Han Zhao mentioned these three things was completely wrong. He did not use her to deal with the tyrant and the others before he left, nor did he use the evolution cube as a bargaining chip to form an alliance. Instead, he used it as compensation for leaving Floating Dragon. This was equivalent to abandoning the method of maximizing benefits and taking the initiative to give her the right to choose. Why? Ames could not help but ask. Han Zhao's actions had completely overturned her impression of him. Han Zhao smiled. "I just feel that between us, there shouldn't be so many calculations of benefits." Ames' movements became sluggish, and her breathing clearly stopped for a moment. Looking deeply at Han Zhao, Ames took 2 steps back and said calmly, "I don't know if you're sincere or not, but regardless, at least you're sincere." Han Zhao's lips curled up, and he nodded. "It seems like we've reached a consensus." "I agree. I'll form an alliance with you." Ames' eyes flashed, and she slowly said, "Furthermore, I've wanted to fight with Heber again for a long time. Although you're new beyond grade A, with your strength, I believe you won't be a burden." "Haha, you're still the Ames of my impression. You're so straightforward in making any decision." Han Zhao smiled, stretched out a hand, and said, "Ally, please take care of me in the future." Ames glanced at Han Zhao's hand, which was suspended in midair, and snorted. "Humph, you used to call me your Excellency Dragon Emperor, but now you're calling me an ally." Then she raised her fair and smooth hand, and her sleeve slid down, revealing her wrist. The 2 hands tightly clasped together. This scene seemed to have been frozen. After shaking hands for a while, the 2 of them let go. Han Zhao's expression was slightly strange. When they shook hands earlier, Ames seemed to have lost her temper and dug into his palm. However, his physical defense was a little high, so he did not feel anything. He did not know if it was a misunderstanding. Han Zhao shook his head helplessly, glanced at the door of the palace, and said, "Still eavesdropping? Come in." Hela, Aesop, and the others walked out from behind the door with embarrassed expressions. They were worried that the two of them would fall out, so they did not really go far and had been eavesdropping outside. Now that they were called in, they felt a little embarrassed. Actually, their little actions could not escape the senses of a beyond grade A, but Han Xiao and Ames were too busy talking to care about it. Seeing that the two of them had settled things peacefully, the atmosphere relaxed, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Although the Black Star Corps had left Floating Dragon Island, the two of them had formed an alliance, so they were still on the same side. The relationship between the officers of both sides was not bad to begin with. Aesop was even more relieved. Ames did not lose her composure, and this was the best outcome he had expected. The alliance of two beyond grade A organizations had a huge advantage in the Shattered Star Ring, and it was beneficial to both sides. My prediction back then was right. With Black Star by her side, Ames will have a better development. Aesop nodded. He had thought that Black Star would become the Dragon Emperor's right-hand man and help her reach a higher level. There was no problem with the general direction, but he had guessed wrong about one detail. Black Star was not assisting the Dragon Emperor, but helping the Dragon Emperor as an equal. All right, since you're willing to fight alongside me, we have to discuss how to deal with Heber and Cisco, Han Xiao said. What do you plan to do? Ames was interested. They've challenged me for a while now, but I haven't responded. Now is the time. Since they want to cause trouble, why don't we make the water more chaotic? I'll respond with you and make the Shattered Star Ring even more sensational. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled. He could also announce that the Black Star Corps had become independent and removed the name of Floating Dragon Island, as well as announce that they had formed an alliance. He believed that this would increase his influence even further. I thought you would ask me to follow you quietly and give them a surprise. Ames glanced at him. We can't hide it from them, so there's no need for that. Since these two are challenging us openly, we'll respond in the same way. Han Xiao slowly said, since they want to be high profile, we'll play along with them. Let's see who shakes the most people. Ames revealed an interested smile. Sounds like it'll be fun. Upon hearing that, Hardaway and the others became excited. There were only 5 beyond grade, as in the Shattered Star Ring. Now that the Tyrant, Star Pupil, Black Star, and Dragon Emperor had all participated, only the Magus was left. He would most likely come over as well. This way, this battle would be a huge event that all the beyond grade, as in the Shattered Star Ring, would participate in. This was a once-in-a-century event, and it would definitely become something that would be recorded in the history of the Shattered Star Ring. Just the thought of being able to witness the gathering of 5 beyond grade has made Hardaway's blood boil. This time, Han Xiao suddenly said, before that, I'll fulfill my promise. Then, he took out the evolution cube and let it float in midair. He looked at Ames. Do I need to prepare anything? Ames asked. No need, just do it. Okay. Ames nodded. Although she did not pursue strength, she was quite curious about the evolution cube. Opening the evolution cube, a stream of black particles wrapped around Ames, and the genetic modification began. Han Xiao turned to look at the various officers of Floating Dragon. Seeing that they nodded, he activated the evolution cube to create new black particles to modify Will Sander and the others. Only Aesop waved his hands and refused. Old man, you don't want to use the evolution cube? Han Xiao was a little surprised. Don't worry about me. Aesop waved his hands. I used it a few hundred years ago. This thing was still in the ruins back then. If not for the fact that it was too big and I was too lazy to find someone to move it, it would have been mine long ago. Han Xiao did not know what to say. As expected of a long-lived species who had lived for who knew how long. Only 2 words. I'm convinced. The genetic modification lasted for a long time. Will Sander and the other officers of Floating Dragon completed their evolutions one after another, and their strength increased. Only Ames was still wrapped in the black particles. After a few hours, Ames finally broke out of the cocoon. Her entire person had undergone a subtle change. The others had all gone back to rest, and only Han Technician was left in the hall. He had occupied Ames' throne and was sitting on it, browsing the silly pictures on the forums for fun. Seeing this, he closed the interface and walked to Ames with a curious expression. How do you feel? Ames did not answer. She frowned as if she was feeling something. Suddenly, her figure disappeared into thin air. Han Xiao was stunned. He suddenly felt the space around him fluctuate. Without saying anything, he released all his senses. At his level, other than sight, hearing, touch, and so on, he could also sense all kinds of special phenomena, such as various spectra, radiation, energy waves, and so on. His senses were very rich. After releasing all his senses, Han Xiao was slightly stunned. In his void vision, Ames was walking in the void dimension, curiously circling around him. You can enter the void dimension? Han Xiao was surprised. He also walked into the void dimension and stepped into the boundary between reality and the void dimension. Seems like this is my new ability. Ames was excited. Floating Dragon Island was built on the bones of the Void Dragon race. Ames had also consumed the Void Dragon marrow before, so there was a certain amount of Void genes in her body. Through the catalysis of the evolution cube, she mutated and obtained some of the abilities of the Void race. Although the two of them were from different beyond Grade A races, they both had the Void bloodline. Some of their genes were similar, and they could be considered half-siblings. After playing for a while, Ames exited the Void dimension and tested her ability with a surprised expression. The effects of the evolution cube are really amazing. My force field strength, range, and control have all become stronger. My physical fitness seems to have been improved as well. That's because your attributes have all increased. Han Xiao had experience with this. Ames did not have an interface and could not see the changes in her body. Chapter 763. After the two sides formed an alliance, Floating Dragon changed its drifting route and headed toward the headquarters of the Black Star Corps. It planned to move together with Han Xiao during this period. Since they had chosen to fight side by side, they naturally had to bring their weapons with them. Floating Dragon had 2 additional islands, and it would definitely be more painful to use them to smash people. Han Xiao told Reynolds to inform the logistics department to quickly modify some spare satellite bases and lend them to Ames as weapons. After all, they could not always use their headquarters as weapons. After using the evolution cube, everyone rested for a day. The next day, Han Xiao and Ames gathered their respective officers. This time, it was to respond to the tyrant's challenge. Before making a public response, Han Xiao decided to contact the tyrant privately. After fighting the secret war for so long, the two of them had never contacted each other. The last time they met was at the tyrant's party more than 10 years ago. At that time, he was only Ames' follower, and Heber had even tried to invite him to join the Bloodshed Land. Han Xiao did not have the tyrant's private communication number, but Ames had it in her contact list. This time, he borrowed Ames' communicator to talk to Heber, and Ames did not have any objections. Looking at the officers around him, Han Xiao opened Ames' communicator and pulled the tyrant's number out of the long-term blacklist. Because of Heber's frequent courtship, Ames had always blocked the tyrant's communication. Han Xiao sent a call request to the tyrant. Beep beep. After a few seconds, the call was connected, and Heber's figure turned into a 3-dimensional projection and appeared on the communicator. Ames, are you ready to accept me? Black Star? Heber frowned. It was a call from Ames. He had thought that Ames, who had been blacklisting him, had finally thought it through and agreed to become his spouse. He did not expect it to be a call from Black Star. Ames has formed an alliance with you. Heber quickly reacted. Han Xiao nodded. Heber narrowed his eyes, but no emotions could be seen on his face. Since a few years ago, many organizations have been secretly spreading rumors of the Black Star Corps splitting up with Floating Dragon Island. After Han Xiao became a beyond Grade A super, Heber knew that splitting up was almost inevitable. The best result would be for Black Star and Floating Dragon Island to become enemies, and the result he did not want to see the most was for the two to form an alliance. It seems that the little tricks of those forces were unable to shake your friendship, Heber said indifferently, his tone unhurried. You don't seem to panic at all. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. To me, it makes no difference. Heber said slowly, tell Ames that I'm giving her one last chance. If she's willing to stay out of this, I can ignore her. Otherwise, I won't go easy on her. Don't think too highly of yourself. No one asked you to go easy on her, Ames said coldly. Heber ignored her and continued to stare at Han Xiao. He shook his head and said, Black Star, I gave you a chance a long time ago, but you did not cherish it. You rejected my invitation and chose to stand on the opposite side of me. If you're contacting me now to beg for mercy, it's too late. We're enemies now, and there's nothing to talk about. I'm only looking for you this time to respond to your challenge. We'll set a time and place. When the time comes, no one will run, Han Xiao said with a deep voice. Through the observer's mark, Han Xiao saw the private contact between Heber and Cisco. Cisco requested to join forces with Heber, but the tyrant rejected it. He wanted to deal with Black Star alone, but he did not stop Cisco from watching. Therefore, the tyrant and the star pupil had their own challenges. This was the reason why the two of them decided to fight separately. Han Xiao also understood the tyrant's thoughts from his reasons. The tyrant did not only want revenge, but also wanted to use the new beyond grade to establish his authority. He wanted as many people as possible to watch. Therefore, in order to create a sensation, Heber would publicly set a time and place so that the various organizations could send people to watch. Okay, Heber said decisively. The time will be in 20 days. The location will be outside the West Wind star system, in the desolate universe belt between the Sol cluster and the Colton star cluster. I'll announce the specific coordinates to the outside world. Choosing this semi-neutral zone not only made it convenient for Bloodshed Land to deploy their troops, but also prevented the battle between Clint and Purple Crystal from escalating into a direct confrontation between civilizations. It would still be considered a proxy war between armed organizations. Heber set aside 20 days to let this news spread in the star field and attract more people to witness his battle with Black Star. However, he would not drag it out for too long. Heber did not want to give Han Xiao too much time to prepare, nor did he want the attention of this storm to decrease. It would be best to establish his authority when Black Star's influence was at its peak. If Black Star wanted to drag it out and miss the appointment, Heber would benefit from it as well. He could say that Black Star was afraid of him and did not dare to come. This would also establish his authority, and he would have a reason to directly go to the Black Star Corps headquarters. Okay, don't run away after school. Han Xiao did not hesitate. Then, without waiting for Heber's reply, he hung up. This guy is still as domineering as ever. So annoying. Ames narrowed her eyes, and her force field moved in her palms. Every time she saw the tyrant's tough face, she wanted to smash Floating Dragon Island on his head. Anyway, the time and location have been decided. All that's left is to attend the appointment. Han Xiao turned to look at the officers. You all heard it, right? Announce it to the outside world in the name of the army. Understood. Sylvia nodded. She participated in this meeting through remote communication. As the chief administrative officer, it was her job to make public announcements. 20 days left. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled. It seemed like this was the last time he had to prepare. The battle between the tyrant and star pupil had caused a huge commotion in the Shattered Star Ring, but Black Star had not made any response. Countless people were anxiously waiting to see how things would develop. Due to the commotion caused by the battle, many supers who had originally planned to join the Black Star Army held back their restless hearts and waited patiently. Thus, not many people came to the Black Star Army to apply for membership. However, Han Xiao had long known about this situation and did not recruit people from all over the star field. 7 days after the battle was announced, the Black Star Corps finally made an official response. Black Star accepted the battle. Not only that, the Black Star Corps also announced a shocking piece of news. From today onwards, the Black Star Corps would leave Floating Dragon Island and declare independence. Because many organizations had deliberately spread rumors over the years, many people thought that the Black Star Corps would sever ties with Floating Dragon Island after becoming independent. However, the truth shocked countless people. The Dragon Emperor Ames had actually allied with Black Star and would fight the tyrant and star pupil together. The development of the situation was beyond the imagination of countless people. Originally, Black Star was fighting alone, facing the challenge of the tyrant and star pupil alone. Countless people were worried for this new beyond grade A super. However, with the intervention of the Dragon Emperor, the situation suddenly became evenly matched. A total of 4 beyond grade, as it stepped in, this was like a catalyst that ignited the passion of the entire star field. Be it the members of the various organizations or the most ordinary galactic residents in the Shattered Star Ring, they all knew one thing. In 20 days, there would be a grand show in this star field. Black Star officially accepted the battle, and he even brought the Dragon Emperor in the Palace of Hidden Spells. Austin looked at the report on the communicator, and his eyes sparkled. The current situation was 2 against 2, and there were 5 beyond grade, as in the Shattered Star Sea. This meant that his existence could affect the direction of the entire situation, and the others definitely knew this as well. Seems like someone will come looking for me soon. Austin shook his head. Beep, beep. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, his communicator rang. It was Cisco's number. Austin smiled helplessly, picked up the call, and hung up after chatting for a while. This time, another call came. It was from Han Xiao. It's been a while, Black Star. You really didn't disappoint me. Austin greeted with a sigh. Actually, I have to thank you. Han Xiao smiled. Thank me for what? If you didn't tell me about the evolution cube, I might not have been able to get my hands on it. Oh, I see. Austin laughed, thought for a while, and said frankly, I know why you're looking for me. Actually, before you, Cisco already came looking for me. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled, and he went straight to the point. Since you know what we mean, what do you plan to do? Both sides wanted to pull Austin to their side, and he was no exception. Austin narrowed his eyes. Although I have some friendship with Cisco, I've asked him to borrow the evolution cube many times, but he never agreed. Now that he has lost the evolution cube, this bargaining chip is in your hands. Are you going to use it to exchange for my help? That's right. Han Xiao nodded. Austin was clearly a smart person, and he did not need to waste time explaining the situation. Unexpectedly, Austin shook his head. I'm very willing to pay for the right to use the evolution cube, but I don't plan to agree to this. Han Xiao's heart sank. However, Austin immediately explained, Don't worry, I don't plan to help Cisco either. You still want to remain neutral? Han Xiao was a little surprised. Austin laughed. The Shattered Star Ring that has been silent for so many years has finally been stirred up by you guys. How can I cause this good show to end prematurely because of my interference? Ha ha. This old man really wants to see the world burn. Han Xiao clenched his teeth. Austin's interest was to be a bystander. He felt that with Black Star's personality, there would be plenty of opportunities to exchange for the right to use the evolution cube in the future. Thus, this time, Austin did not plan to join either side to break this balance. For a beyond grade, a like him who was used to remaining neutral, in order to satisfy his interest of staying out of the show, he could give up some benefits. At the beyond grade A level, he had the capital to squander and did not need to restrict his personality at all. Furthermore, both sides were beyond grade S. Helping either side would anger the other. Austin was not stupid. Only by remaining neutral could he remain aloof. Austin's attitude was firm, and it was basically impossible to convince him. Han Xiao had no choice but to hang up after chatting for a while. Although he did not succeed, Han Xiao was not too disappointed. Austin was not part of his consideration in the first place. If he succeeded, it would be a surprise, but if he did not, it was within expectations. At the very least, he had failed on Cisco's side. The situation was already clear. The confrontation between Beyond Grade as would not change, so he could only think of a solution from the other organizations. On the mother planet of the Clint Kingdom, the Red Empire's Clint Diplomatic Embassy, Clint wants to ask for our help to deal with Black Star. In the office of the Diplomatic Embassy, Zoel looked at the Clint emissary in front of him and could not help but reveal an inexplicable smile. Yes, Black Star stood on Purple Crystal's side in the secret war and killed hundreds of our Calamity Grade supers. This is a huge blow to the high-level combatants of our alliance. Now that Black Star has advanced to Beyond Grade A, he will become an even bigger obstacle for us. Our strength is limited, so I hope the Red Empire can provide some help, the Clint emissary said respectfully. Zoel tapped his fingers on the table and stared at the other party without saying a word. He was the emissary sent by the dynasty to Clint and had been there for many years. The emissary from the Red Empire that Han Shao had met at the tyrant's party was him. The races of the Red Empire had long lifespans. More than 10 years was not a long time for them. When Clint publicly sided with the Red Empire more than 10 years ago, Zoel went from the dark to the surface and built a diplomatic embassy on the Clint mother planet, representing the Red Empire to negotiate with the Clint rulers. At the same time, he had the authority to mobilize part of the Red Empire's army stationed in the Shattered Star Ring. The three universal civilizations had their own secret military factories and fleets in every star field. The size of the army in every star field was enough to fight with 2 to 3 star cluster civilizations at the same time. Being able to command the dynasty's secret armed forces in every star field proved that Zol's position in Shattered Star Ring was extremely high. He was one of the most powerful emissaries of the dynasty. Zoel thought for a while before saying, "I will consider Clint's request. Please leave first." The Clint emissary could only bow and leave, gently closing the door for Zoel. Black Star, huh? Zoel thought to himself. Zoel naturally knew about this new Beyond Grade A who had caused a commotion in the Shattered Star Ring recently. In fact, during the 10 years of the Secret War, Black Star's shocking achievements had already been recorded in the dynasty's database by Zoel. Clint was not willing to let Purple Crystal have a Beyond Grade A ally. Since their ally, the Tyrant, had already agreed to a battle, they had secretly sent someone to request the Red Empire's help, wanting to get rid of Han Shao completely. As the dynasty's emissary, Zol's standards were naturally very high. However, he was not arrogant. Even if the Red Empire had many Beyond Grade as their national pillars, he would not underestimate the other Beyond Grade as. It was because he understood that he knew that every Beyond Grade A was not to be trifled with. Zoel did not want to help Clint deal with a Beyond Grade A in his own star field. He was very interested in Black Star, completing the path to Beyond Grade A in 20 years. No one in history has ever done that. He still has a very long lifespan, and his future potential is unpredictable. Zol's eyes sparkled. Furthermore, such a person had even snatched the evolution cube that the Arcane Church had hidden. Maybe he could get in touch with him. As for Clint's thoughts, there was no need for the dynasty's emissary to explain to a star cluster civilization. At this moment, the internal communicator rang, and the face of one of his subordinates appeared. "Your Excellency Zoel, a special person is looking for you. Would you like to transfer the call?" "Who is it?" "Black Star. He actually took the initiative to look for me." Zol's eyes sparkled, and he pondered for 2 seconds before nodding. "Transfer it in." Chapter 764. After waiting for a while, the screen of the communicator in Han Zhao's hand flashed, and the figure of Zoel appeared. Han Shao raised his brows. The Red Empire diplomatic office did not reject his request, which meant that they were interested in talking to him. This was a good start. In his plan, forming an alliance with the Red Empire was a very important part. With a smile, Han Shao said, "It's been a long time since we last met, Ambassador Zoel." "That's right. The last time we met was more than 10 years ago. You followed the Dragon Emperor to the Tyrant's party. I still remember that you tried to persuade Ames to join the Red Empire. Although nothing came of it in the end, I had a deep impression of you." Zoel had a smile on his face. His attitude toward Han Shao was not bad, not only because Han Shao was a Beyond Grade A, but also because when the two of them first met more than 10 years ago, Han Shao had shown signs of being on the side of the Red Empire. "So, you still remember." Han Shao smiled. "Back then, I thought that the possibility of the Red Empire taking down the flickering world was very high. Now, my guess has been proven correct." Hearing this, Zol's smile became even more obvious. More than 10 years ago, during the Tyrant's party, Black Star had predicted that the Red Empire would successfully take down the flickering world. Zol's evaluation of Han Shao could not help but improve. "Your foresight is very far-sighted. I admire that. Of course, there's probably no one who can see further than me." Han Shao lampooned in his mind. The benefit of being familiar with the plot was that even if you hadn't eaten today, I would know what kind of sh** tea you would take tomorrow. After pausing for a while, Han Xiao finally brought up the purpose of his visit. My thoughts are still the same as 10 years ago. Now that the Black Star Corps has left floating Dragon Island, I don't need to convince anyone. I can make my own decisions. Zol's eyes sparkled. If I didn't understand wrongly, you want to join the Red Empire? That's why I'm looking for you today. Han Xiao nodded. Due to his promotion, the Black Star Corps had the qualifications to become a beyond Grade A organization. However, the upper limit of an organization still depended on resources, connections, and other factors. In the galaxy, the 3 universal civilizations were his biggest backers. As long as he allied with one of them, he would be able to obtain an unimaginable amount of resources. At the same time, he also needed a strong partner to protect the Evolution Cube. Cisco and the Arcane Church would definitely not let this go easily, and the Radiant Federation might interfere as well. Countless large organizations in the universe would cast covetous gazes at the Evolution Cube, not to mention that there was also a lawless thug like ES God. Just the Black Star Corps, which was only at the Star Cluster level, would not be able to defend against so many malicious intents. Among the 3 universal civilizations, the Red Empire was the most suitable ally in Han Xiaoxin's eyes. He would be able to obtain the ticket to the flickering world in advance and use the upper echelons of the Red Empire to destroy Clint's plan and obtain victory in the secret war. These were all important factors that had to do with vital interests. Of course, there were other reasons as well. Han Xiao was someone from the Red Empire in his previous life, so he remembered more about the Red Empire's storyline and opportunities. Furthermore, among the 3 universal civilizations, he admired the Red Empire the most. The history of the 3 universal civilizations could be traced back to the origin calendar before the exploration era. The 3 civilizations were not born at the same time. Among them, the Radiant Federation was the oldest, followed by the Arcane Church, and the Red Empire was the youngest. There was a gap of thousands to tens of thousands of years between them. The origin calendar was a period of chaos and lack of records. At that time, there were no strong civilizations that could unify the galaxy, and there were no connections between the various star fields. All civilizations were alone, exploring and developing on their own in the dark forest. At that time, the 3 universal civilizations were far from reaching their current heights. The star fields they were in had other civilizations that were stronger than them. After many years of development and war, the 3 universal civilizations finally eliminated their opponents in their respective star fields and obtained the hegemony of their respective star fields. They began to explore the outside world beyond the desolate universe belts. The central galaxy, where the 3 universal civilizations stood today, was the starting star field of the 3 universal civilizations. They happened to be right next to each other, so they naturally discovered each other. As the saying went, how could one allow others to sleep in one's bed? The 3 universal civilizations all wanted to kill each other, so the universal war between the 3 universal civilizations broke out. This was the turning point from the origin calendar to the exploration calendar, and the 3 universal civilizations worked together to open a new era. At the beginning of the exploration calendar, the 3 universal civilizations explored the outside world while fighting. With the central galaxy as the center, the flames of war spread outward, and more star fields were discovered. In the process of exploring the star fields, more civilizations were forced to participate in this war. The war became more and more intense, and countless civilizations fell because of it. The war that swept across the entire universe was extremely tragic. Currently, there were a few desolate universe belts on the map of the galaxy. They were originally normal star fields, but they were forcibly turned into desolate universe belts during the Long War. Back then, the 3 universal civilizations did not have the overwhelming power that they had today. There were still a few powerful civilizations that were on the same level as them, and the evolutionary civilization was one of them. If these civilizations had survived to this day, it was very likely that they would have developed into universal civilizations and had the status of the 3 universal civilizations. Unfortunately, they had long been wiped out in the exploration calendar war. Only the Radiant Federation, the Arcane Church, and the Red Empire survived and obtained hegemony. They stopped fighting each other, allowing the era to catch a breather and enter the peaceful galaxy calendar. Only then did the universe become what it was today. After many years of peace, the development of the Radiant Federation and the Arcane Church in terms of technology, system, and race had more or less stagnated. Their strength had weakened to varying degrees. Only the Red Empire had not fallen in peace and had always maintained its ambition and aggressiveness. Therefore, Han Xiao had high hopes for the Red Empire. A civilization full of ambition would always create more opportunities for development. Forming an alliance with it would be very promising. Zoel heard Han Zhao's confirmation, but did not immediately respond. Instead, he fell into deep thought. He had originally planned to contact and test the waters, but he did not expect Black Star to take the initiative to ask to join the alliance. A beyond grade, joining a universal civilization was nothing new, but it was undoubtedly beyond his authority. He had to report this to the upper echelons. Zoel secretly estimated Han Zhao's value. Black Star's strength and potential are unquestionable. He has been in the dynasty's faction for more than 10 years, so he is not a fence-sitter. The Black Star Corps' influence in Shattered Star Ring is considerable. After forming an alliance, it will become a new layout point for the dynasty in this star field, which will be beneficial for developing the flickering world. Furthermore, he has the Evolution Cube in his hands. Right, the Evolution Cube needs to be discussed. The Evolution Cube originally belonged to Cisco and was protected by the Arcane Church. Now that it was in Han Zhao's hands, it was an important bargaining chip. Thinking of this, Zoel directly asked, "There's something I need to understand. How do you plan to deal with the Evolution Cube?" Han Xiao smiled. "This thing is, of course, part of the conditions of our alliance. We can deal with it in a shared way. The Red Empire will support me in keeping the Evolution Cube, and you can send people to me to use it." He was talking about the cooperation between Cisco and the Arcane Church, but he did not plan to share the benefits of the Evolution Cube with the universal civilizations like Cisco did. Cisco had used the agreement of sharing the Evolution Cube to exchange for the Arcane Church's support for the Star Pupil Protoss race. Han Xiao did not have a race to raise, so he did not have too many burdens. Using the Evolution Cube to attract allies from other civilizations was more beneficial to him. Not bad. Zoel nodded. This was within his acceptable range. The dynasty's upper echelons should accept this condition. We can help you deal with some external obstacles. Apart from this, do you have any other requests? Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. This was the beginning of the negotiation. I have a few requests. Han Xiao put away his smile and said seriously, "First, I want the Red Empire to support me and the Black Star Corps." "No problem," Zoel replied without hesitation. "With the Evolution Cube, we are willing to give you more resources. Second, I hope the Black Star Corps can join the team exploring the flickering world." "Haha, even if you didn't say it, I think the dynasty would ask you to go," Zoel joked. Han Xiao nodded. That was true. The Shattered Star Ring was the closest to the flickering world. If the Red Empire needed pioneers, the organizations in the Shattered Star Ring would be their first choice. The entrance ticket to the flickering world was not a problem. Third, I hope the Red Empire will not speak for the Clent Kingdom regarding the secret war. Hearing this, Zoel immediately frowned. This is the decision of the upper echelons and not within my authority. I can't make any guarantees. This question was both out of his expectations and within reason. The secret war had been going on for so many years, so it was not strange for the Black Star to want to win. However, Clint was also an ally of the Red Empire. This was a multiple-choice question, and Zoel could not guarantee the decision of the upper echelons. "It's fine." Han Xiao waved his hands. "These three are my biggest conditions." I'll report it." Zoel knocked on the table and suddenly said, "By the way, do you need us to mediate the conflict between you and Heber?" Since Black Star was also going to join the Crimson Dynasty, the Tyrant and Black Star would be allies, and the conflict between the two parties was like a flood crashing into the Dragon King Temple. although the public declaration of war could not be revoked. As long as the news of Black Star joining the Red Empire was announced, the two of them would naturally not fight. No need. Han Xiao rejected. Zoel thought for a while and laughed. You're right. I didn't consider it carefully. If the Red Empire came out to mediate the conflict, it would be detrimental to Black Star's image. People would think that Black Star was running to the Red Empire to escape the tyrant's pursuit. If there's nothing else to add, I'll report your conditions to the upper echelons. Oh, right. Han Xiao suddenly thought of something. I have a small request. I hope to obtain some mechanic class cutting-edge knowledges within 20 days. The Red Empire naturally had a full set of class knowledges, and cutting-edge knowledges were not that precious to them. He might be able to activate all the Emperor mechanic skills before the war. With Han Zhao's current manufacturing speed, 20 days was enough for him to create a large number of machines. Zoel nodded. If it was ultimate knowledges, the upper echelons would consider it, but cutting-edge knowledges were given without hesitation. After all, this was a beyond grade, who was preparing to join the alliance. This was the basic treatment. All right, wait for my news. Zoel nodded. This was the initial negotiation between the two parties. The specific outcome would depend on the opinion of the upper echelons of the Red Empire. At the same time, somewhere in the Shattered Star Ring, Cisco was flying toward the Colton Star Cluster in a spaceship. The Dragon Emperor actually interfered. TSK, looks like things won't go so smoothly. At this time, Cisco was not in a good mood. Heber wanted to fight Black Star alone and rejected his invitation to join forces. Cisco could only challenge Han Xiao himself. However, he also found a good opportunity. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to Black Star keeping the Evolution Cube in a portable state. Black Star would carry the Evolution Cube with him everywhere he went. On the day of the battle, once he fought with the tyrant, he would definitely reveal an opening, and Han Xiao would have a chance to take the Evolution Cube back from Black Star. At that time, even if the tyrant refused to join forces, it would be useless. As long as they fought, he would be able to intervene at any time, and no one would be able to stop him. Taking advantage of the situation would not require him to fight Black Star head-on, and the success rate would be very high. Cisco's goal was ultimately the Evolution Cube, not Black Star. He did not care what others thought of him. For the development of his race, losing a little reputation was nothing. Originally, there was no problem with this plan. Black Star would be fighting alone, and his energy would be tied down by the tyrant. He would definitely not be able to face a second beyond Grade A Super. However, Aim's interference had ruined his plan. Black Star had a teammate, and if he wanted to ambush him, Ames would definitely stop him. This way, he would not be able to snatch the Evolution Cube while Black Star was not paying attention, unless there was someone who could restrain Ames. The best candidate was originally Austin, but this old man insisted on watching the show and refused to help no matter what. This made Cisco so angry that his eyes hurt. All 7 of them hurt. Left with no choice, he could only find another helper. Luckily, he still had a strong ally. Looks like I can only ask the Arcane Church's Shattered Star Ring garrison for help. If it's just to restrain a beyond Grade A, they should be willing to help. Cisco's eyes flashed like a light bulb. Chapter 765. After the date and location of the battle between Black Star and the Tyrant was announced, the entire Shattered Star Ring went into an uproar. All of a sudden, hundreds of millions of spaceships from various star clusters and star systems rushed to the battle location at the border of the Colton Star Cluster's West Wind Star System. Be it the galactic residents or the various large organizations or civilizations, no one was willing to miss such a rare event in the star field. They all rushed to the location to witness it. As the party involved, the Bloodshed Land deployed a large fleet in the desolate universe belt at the border of the West Wind Star System and marked out the battle location. Purple Crystal firmly supported Han Xiao and acted as his backup. The troops of Section 0 were also stationed at the battle location to face off against the Bloodshed Land. The Black Star Corps was not idle either. Under the orders of the various officers, countless fleets escorted armed satellite fortresses from different star systems to the battlefield to support their army commander. The Bloodshed Land and Section 0 faced off against each other. The area between the two was the designated battlefield, which was extremely vast. Around the battlefield, countless spaceships piloted by the galactic residents who had come to join in the fun were parked neatly in all directions. All kinds of spaceships were densely packed together, forming an ocean. Despite the vastness of the universe, the ocean of spaceships was still boundless. From afar, it looked like a nebula formed by the lights of spaceships. It was an extremely spectacular sight. Furthermore, more and more people arrived in spaceships every day and found their own seats to be spectators. The number of spectators was constantly increasing. Hundreds of thousands of galactic media outlets from various star systems heard the news and were already waiting at the battle location, adjusting the broadcast equipment. The date of the battle was still early, and all the beyond grades had yet to arrive. However, there were already countless people waiting there in advance, showing the scene of a sea of people. This was not just a conflict between beyond grade, but also a super event in a shattered star ring. A beyond grade, it had a transcendent status. In the hearts of the galactic residents, a beyond grade, it was like the biggest star in a star field. Almost everyone knew about them, and everyone wanted to see their strength with their own eyes. The 20 days of reserve time allowed the attention of this event to increase even further. Almost 60 to 70% of the Shattered Star Ring citizens had privately discussed this topic. As the date of the battle approached, the galactic residents became more and more excited and could not wait. The galactic gambling industry would not let go of such a good business opportunity, and the various gambling companies controlled by the financial groups began to take action. The bets between the Tyrant and Black Star were opened very quickly. Countless people eagerly participated, and a huge amount of money flowed into the gambling industry. Countless gambling companies gave different odds, but overall, Heber's odds was lower than Han Zhao's odds, which meant that most people favored Tyrant's odds were higher. Although they were both beyond grade, as Han Zhao was still a newcomer, and he only had one battle record against beyond grade, which was to escape unscathed from Psyker. Tyrant was the supernova superstar. Superstar gamer was supers, tyrants was tyrants. Most mercenaries were gambling dogs. Although it was their boss's battle, the warriors of the Black Star Corps could not help but place their bets. Even the officers were no exception. Haluz placed the most bets, all on Han Zhao. Most of the officers placed their bets on their army commander like him. The amount of money was not important. The most important thing was to express their loyalty and trust. There were only a few exceptions. You placed all your bets on the Tyrant. Sylvia's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at Reynolds. According to probability and my calculations, the Tyrant's chances of winning are 13% higher than His Excellency Black Star, Reynolds said with a straight face. Sylvia helplessly facepalmed. Don't you have any trust in your teacher? I only believe in science, Reynolds said with a serious expression. Rosalind, who was by the side, leaned on the sofa gracefully. She was wearing a gorgeous black robe with the Black Star Corps' logo embroidered on it. She looked elegant and noble. While drinking, she listened to the conversation between the two of them with great interest. Rosalind was now the Black Star Army's great educator. She was in charge of educating the members of the Army, spreading the culture of the Army, and increasing the sense of belonging of the employees. She had been in this position for many years and was very fertile. At this moment, Rosalind smiled and interrupted. According to what I know, our deputy commander also placed his bets on the Tyrant, and he placed a lot of them. Loggy. Sylvia was furious. She pushed open the door and stormed out to find Loggy. She was the chief administrative officer with real power. Although Loggy was the deputy commander, he basically did not care about anything. Sylvia had the confidence to confront Loggy. As the deputy commander of the army, he actually placed his bets on the enemy. When Leonard heard this, his expression changed slightly. *T, Loggy also placed his bets on the Tyrant. The army commander's chances of winning will probably increase by at least 10%, because of this. Rosalind smiled mockingly. Yo, don't you believe in science? Magic is also a part of science. Reynolds was helpless. However, bets were just bets. In his heart, he still hoped that Black Star would win. Due to the battle between Black Star and the Tyrant, the secret war came to a standstill, causing the participating players to have nothing to fight. Even the main storyline mission was paused because of this. To the players of a Shattered Star Ring, this was the most influential legendary event in the past 3 versions. Black Star was already the faction leader in the hearts of many army players. Now that he had advanced to the Beyond Grade A realm, his position in the hearts of the players was even higher. Although Han Xiao did not issue any faction missions, the 2 to 3 million army players scattered all over the world followed the army fleet and headed to the location of the battle to support their army commander. This was not the first time that the players of the Black Star Corps had participated in a large-scale faction activity. This was the only time that it was organized spontaneously. Furthermore, it was the faction activity with the largest number of players in history. Countless posts on the forums were analyzing the cause and effect of this event. There was a theory that was most widely acknowledged by the players. This battle was the turning point of the Black Star Corps' fate. The Black Star Corps was now the main faction in the hearts of the players of a Shattered Star Ring. Since version 2.0, it had been the guiding faction. Its influence continued to expand, and the resources and benefits that the players enjoyed also increased with the version. It almost satisfied all their needs for leveling up, missions, skills, knowledge, equipment, and so on. A single faction was comparable to the countless factions of the players of the other star fields. This allowed the players of the Shattered Star Ring to save time farming favorability with the other factions. Therefore, the Black Star Corps was once considered to be the only faction in the Shattered Star Ring. Therefore, there had always been people analyzing the future prospects of the Black Star Corps. According to the experience of the players of the other star fields, some people were worried that the Black Star Corps would not exist forever. Perhaps after a certain version update, the Black Star Corps would suffer an unprecedented blow. The benefits that they enjoyed now and the things that they had experienced would become a thing of the past that could not be recovered. The members of the army would then part ways and join different factions, just like the players of the other star fields. Would they really be able to stay in the Black Star Corps forever? No one knew. This kind of conjecture had always existed, but it was rarely mentioned. Every popular thing would be viewed with pessimism by some people, but most players were not interested in worrying about it. Only the hardcore players who liked the storyline liked to ponder about this kind of prediction. Summer Night Flowers was an example. In the heated discussion on the forums, this battle was used as an important reference to predict the future. In the eyes of the players, if the army commander won, the Black Star Corps would very likely soar into the sky. The faction would grow again and become a higher-level organization, continuing to appear in the next version. However, if the result of this battle was not satisfactory, the feelings that the players had toward the army would also change subtly. The discussion on the forums affected Porkbon. The Black Star series videos were his most popular works. Among all the players, he was the one who hoped that the Black Star Corps would develop smoothly the most. This time, I have to collect enough material and make a video of off the charts. Bun Hit Dog made up his mind. Aquamarine Federation Mother Planet, Black Star City, Government Building. Bennett put down the galactic communicator in his hands and could not hide the worry on his face. The news of the battle between Black Star and the Tyrant was constantly being shared on the various quantum networks in the Shattered Star Ring. Now that the Blue Star civilization was connected to the universe, everyone could browse the galactic network. Everything that happened in the universe was no longer a secret to the people of Blue Star. This is probably the strongest opponent you have ever faced. Bennett sighed. Nero, who was busy copying homework, looked up and asked curiously, "Dad, what are you talking about?" Bennett waved his hand, and Nero obediently came to his father and sat on Bennett's lap. "Your godfather is currently involved in a dangerous situation. A strong opponent challenged him, and he chose to accept the challenge." Bennett gave a brief summary. Nero was still a child, So he omitted many things and only let Nero know that Han Xiao was currently in danger. Nero was Han Zhao's godson, and Bennett had decided to stay in Blue Star and was prepared to entrust his child to Han Xiao. Then what should I do? Nero scratched his head. Dad, will you help Godfather? Bennett smiled helplessly. Your godfather doesn't need my help. There are some things that you will understand when you grow up. The difference between the two of them was too great. He did not even have the intention of contacting Han Xiao, as he did not want to disturb Han Xiao. Bennett hugged Nero and looked up at the sky outside the window. He knew that Han Xiao was somewhere deep in the universe, so he prayed for Han Xiao. Old friend, the huge fleet that set off from the Black Star Corps headquarters met up with Floating Dragon midway, and both parties headed toward the West Wind border together. A few days later, Zoel contacted Han Xiao and brought the Red Empire's reply. The dynasty values your suggestion greatly, and we agree to your request. On behalf of the dynasty, I welcome you to join us. Zoel used a formal tone to announce the good news before adding with a smile, we are now on the same side. Grade beyond grade, A is indeed powerful. Han Xiao clenched his fists in excitement. I hope to have a pleasant cooperation in the future. Don't worry, the dynasty is very experienced in this regard. We have always treated our beyond grade A allies with sincerity. Zoel smiled. With the competition between the three universal civilizations, every beyond grade A ally was an important strategic chess piece. Thus, there would not be a situation where they bullied their customers. Once an alliance was confirmed, the universal civilizations would use excellent treatment to retain their allies. The Red Empire is currently dealing with the follow-up matters of the flickering world and will pass by the Shattered Star Ring, Zoel said. Perhaps it won't take long for the resources supported by the dynasty to reach your hands. However, we will have to wait until your battle with the tyrant is over before we can officially start working together. After some time, the dynasty's official alliance contract will be sent to me. At that time, all you have to do is sign it. Although the contract did not have much binding power on Beyond Grade, as it was an official written acknowledgement, it was equivalent to having a status and had political significance. Han Xiao heard this and nodded. Joining the Red Empire was a step to a higher level, and the benefits would gradually show. Now, he had to deal with the tyrant. Only after dealing with the powerful enemies would he have time to deal with the development of the Black Star Corps. Also, the dynasty has a request for you. We hope that you can make a trip to the Central Galaxy. The upper echelons of the dynasty would like to meet you and introduce you to the other beyond grade A allies of the dynasty. Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat. This meant that he would appear in the Central Galaxy as an ally of the Red Empire, which was equivalent to the Red Empire showing a new bargaining chip to their two neighbors. He did not have any thoughts about this. Since he wanted to enjoy the support of the Red Empire, he naturally had to bear the corresponding obligations. Although this meant that he would be labeled as an ally of the Red Empire by many organizations and receive the attention of the dynasty's enemies, he would mainly be active in the Shattered Star Ring, and the sensible organizations would not purposely find trouble with him. No problem. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. There's one more thing. My intelligence network discovered that the Arcane Church's troops in the Shattered Star Ring are moving. They seem to be heading to the location of the battle, possibly to support Cisco, Zoel said slowly. Therefore, I've mobilized the troops of the Red Empire, and they will also arrive at the battlefield. This is the condition we agreed on previously. They will help you resist external resistance. You guys are going to watch the battle too? Han Xiao stroked his chin. Is this okay? No one will suspect your intentions, right? Of course not. Zoel shrugged. After all, the tyrant is also our ally. Han Xiao almost laughed out loud. That's right. The Red Empire can use the tyrant as an excuse and say that they are sending troops to support the tyrant. No one will suspect their intentions, and no one will guess that they are actually here to help me. The Red Empire would not interfere in the battle between Han Xiao and the tyrant. This was an internal conflict, although the tyrant himself was still kept in the dark. However, Cisco was not one of them and was an external threat. He was also an unstable factor in this battle. The Arcane Church's target was obviously the Evolution Cube, and the Red Empire would not allow the Evolution Cube to be snatched back. There's one last thing. Zoel knocked on the table. Your application for cutting-edge knowledge has been approved. I'll send the information to you later. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. Compared to the resources that he had yet to obtain, this was the real benefit. There were a total of 9 cutting-edge knowledges for the mechanic class. He had already learned 4 of them from Purple Crystal, and there were still 5 that he had yet to learn. He had specifically listed them out and given them to Zoel. He wondered how many cutting-edge knowledges the Red Empire would give him. May I ask how many cutting-edge knowledges the Red Empire has decided to give me? How many? Do you have some misunderstandings about universal civilizations? Zoel shook his head and laughed. They're all yours. Chapter 766. As expected of a rich guy. So generous. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. A universal civilization would naturally not be stingy with the benefits given to a beyond grade A super. Excluding ultimate knowledges, all the basic knowledges to cutting-edge knowledges were given to him with a wave of their hand. In his previous life, when Han Xiao was in the Red Empire, he had to constantly complete missions to earn contribution points in order to exchange for knowledges. After chatting for a while, Han Xiao went to the workshop. Not long after, the information was sent over. After taking a look, he could not help but be overjoyed. The 4 cutting-edge knowledges he had now were Controllable Annihilation Weapon, Abnormal State Energy, Quantum Matrix Thought Field, and Advanced Space Application. Zoel sent over the last 5 cutting-edge knowledges. Armed Branch, Cutting-Edge Material Science, Super Composite Mechanical Architecture, Energy Branch, Beyond Visual Range Energy Transfer, Activation Theory, Control Branch, Space-Time Dimension Exploration. Now everything is complete. Han Xiao was excited. The Control Branch was his main class. Learning a cutting-edge knowledge only required 4 potential points, while the other 2 branches required 12 potential points each time. Han Xiao had saved up a large number of potential points when he advanced to beyond grade A. Although it was not enough to max out these knowledges, it was not a problem for him to learn 1 level of each of them. In the later versions of his previous life, the players could only choose to learn 1 or 2 cutting-edge knowledges from the other branches. However, Han Xiao was different. He had a huge amount of EXP to level up his skills, so he could earn several times more potential points than the players. It was not impossible for him to learn all the cutting-edge knowledges. Heber thought 20 days was sure enough. Han Xiaoxin, chuckled to himself. Compared to other mechanics, the interface was his biggest advantage. As long as he invested potential points, he would be able to learn knowledges quickly and save a lot of time. He would be able to obtain the greatest amount of growth in the limited time before the battle. When the time came, he would have more trump cards to deal with the tyrant. Without hesitation, Han Xiao invested potential points and confirmed to learn these 5 cutting-edge knowledges. Mechanic cutting-edge knowledge, space-time dimension exploration detected. Invest 4 potential points to learn it. Learning, please. 9%, 24%, 57% successfully learned. You have mastered space-time dimension exploration. Mechanic cutting-edge knowledge, cutting-edge material science detected. Would you like to spend 12 potential points to learn it? Learning in progress. Please do not terminate. Successfully learned. You have mastered top material science. Detected a huge amount of information flowed into his brain. With Han Zhao's intelligence attribute, this burden was already very easy. Countless pieces of machinery knowledge were disassembled, analyzed, and then reassembled into a set of memories that were stored in the memory palace. After investing 52 potential points, he had mastered all 5 cutting-edge knowledges. Their names appeared on the class knowledge tree on the interface, glowing in orange. On the class knowledge tree, the names of basic knowledges were white, advanced knowledges were green, advanced knowledges were purple, cutting-edge knowledges were orange, and higher ultimate knowledges were glowing gold. At this moment, several notifications popped up on the interface. The prerequisite has been met. Your skill Quantum Infinite Distance Transmission Channel has been activated. The prerequisite has been met. Your skill, Secondary Dimension Army, has been activated. The prerequisite has been met. Your skill, Mechanical Force, Emperor's Authority, has been activated. The names of the 3 Emperor Mechanic skills turned from gray to green, showing that they were unlocked. Han Xiao could not help but feel happy. The new knowledges he had mastered had all the prerequisites of these 3 skills. Only the last skill, King's Mentor, had not been activated. This skill not only required activation theory, but also an ultimate knowledge of a higher level. Because King's Mentor was a long-term nurturing ability, it would not be of much help to the battle in 10 days. Han Xiao was not in a hurry and planned to find a chance to unlock it in the future. With the Quantum Infinite Distance Transmission channel, the Mech Legion will be able to engage in long-range combat, and they will be able to enjoy the bonuses of Mechanical Force even without me personally descending. This way, my Mech Legion will have the ability to go on expeditions alone. As for the Secondary Dimension Army, I will be able to eliminate the Army Box jump tactic, greatly increasing the speed of reinforcements. Lastly, the Mechanical Force. Emperor's Authority will provide even greater power to my main body. Han Xiao was very satisfied. The Emperor Mechanic skills were extremely powerful, but the abilities he had obtained were not limited to just these. You have learned the skill, Activated Mechanical Force. You have learned the skill, Advanced Machinery Construction. You have learned the skill, Top Material Refining. You have learned the skill, Legendary Enhancement. You have learned the skill, Machinery Fusion, Bestowal. Han Xiao raised his hand and released Mechanical Force. A ball of Mechanical Force condensed in his palm, and its color changed. The blue of the lightning was mixed with a faint golden light, giving off a beautiful bluish gold color. This was the effect of Activated Mechanical Force. This skill originated from activation theory, and it was a passive ability. Its interface effect was plus 150% machinery affinity, and when it was maxed out, it would become plus 280%. Its introduction was to give the Mechanical Force the activation characteristic. As a result, the appearance of the Mechanical Force changed. The Mechanical Force turned into bluish gold lightning, which complemented the name of the Emperor Mechanic. Perhaps it was because of the enhancement from the light effect halo, but it looked much better than before. Advanced Machinery Construction was the advanced version of basic machinery construction. It greatly increased the speed of machinery construction. As long as there were enough raw materials, he could quickly turn the materials into parts through Mechanical Force and assemble them into machines according to the blueprint. It could be said that even if he did not bring any machines, as long as there was still metal around, he would not lack weapons. The other effect of this skill was to increase the effect of waste modification. Originally, it could only restore a broken machine 4 times, but now, the limit was increased to 8 times. The reduction of the performance of the machine each time was reduced from 20% to 10%, and the endurance was doubled. Top Material Refining and Legendary Enhancement were both advanced basic skills of a mechanic. They increased his ability to synthesize new materials and strengthen machinery. The last skill, Machinery Fusion, Give, was similar to King's Mentor. It also came from the cutting-edge knowledge, activation theory, and was also an ability to nurture soldiers. The effect was to give a mechanical soldier the ability to devour other machines, decompose the target, load the opponent's armor and equipment onto itself, and repair its own hardware or enhance its performance. Generally speaking, this was the evolution and growth mode of mechanical life forms. However, these two skills did not overlap. The foundation of King's Mentor was the activation of mechanical force within the machine, and it cultivated energy. Machinery Fusion, Give, was the fusion of external hardware. To put it simply, King's Mentor was equivalent to increasing the energy bonus of the mechanical soldier, while Machinery Fusion, Give, increased the physical strength and basic attributes of the mechanical soldier. The two complemented each other, and this was the normal growth channel for the mechanical soldier to become a mechanical life. These skills are important for me to increase my combat strength at this stage. Han Xiao thought to himself. Due to the 10-month experience penalty from the evolution cube, Han Xiao did not plan to waste any extra experience to increase his overall level. He decided to use all the experience to increase the level of his skills and increase his chances of fighting the tyrant. After carefully browsing through the new skills and leveling most of them up to the maximum level, Han Xiao closed the interface. These new cutting-edge knowledges could be used on the Mech Legion. There were still more than 10 days left, and his combat strength could still increase to a new peak in the short term. At this time, the fleet and floating dragon were on their way. Han Xiao handed all the matters to his officers and stayed in the machinery workshop, immersing himself in building machines. The others knew that he was preparing for war, and even Ames did not disturb his seclusion. More than 10 days passed in the blink of an eye, and the day of the battle arrived. The desolate universe belt outside of the West Wind Star system had become extremely lively, and it had long become an endless sea of spaceships. After 20 days of rushing, countless spaceships had arrived from various nearby regions. They were densely packed and seemed endless. And in the various star regions, star clusters, star systems, and planets, the number of people watching the broadcast was countless times that of the live audience. When all of them were added together, it was an astronomical number that couldn't be calculated. This battlefield had become a stage where everyone was paying attention to. At this time, not a single Beyond Grade A had arrived. Everyone was waiting excitedly for the main character to arrive. The Bloodshed Land and Section Zero's fleets were still in a standoff. Clint and Purple Crystal had also sent their official fleets to the scene to maintain stability. The atmosphere was on the verge of exploding, and the secret war could turn into an official civilization war at any time. However, the official fleets of both sides were extremely restrained and did not clash. There are too many people here. In a Star Diamond grade flagship, Ralph looked at the endless crowd of spaceships through the porthole. Even with his high position and rich experience, facing such a shocking scene, he could not help but feel nervous. There were probably hundreds of millions of live audience members here. If things get chaotic later, we won't be able to maintain order. Ralph was worried. He turned to look at the communicator on the spaceship and asked, "How much longer until Black Star arrives?" Just now, the Black Star Corps headquarters sent a message. They said that His Excellency Black Star's troops will be arriving soon. Ralph's palms were sweaty, and he could not help but imagine what would happen later. He had led the Purple Crystal Fleet there not only to support Han Xiao, but also to provide support to Black Star when necessary. It was not easy for them to have a Beyond Grade A ally, and Purple Crystal had already made up their mind to not give up. If the situation was unfavorable, Purple Crystal would not hesitate to help. After all, the secret war had already reached a stalemate, and Purple Crystal was not afraid of flipping the table. Furthermore, the authority to act according to the situation was in the hands of Ralph and a few other senior officers. At the same time, the Black Star Corps fleet was stationed at the most eye-catching location in Section Zero's camp. Hundreds of thousands of battleships filled the sky, and 2 to 3 million players were in some of the battleships, staring at the scene outside the porthole. The war is going to start today. Mad Blade could not help but clench his fists. He looked around, and the faces of the players around him were filled with curiosity, anticipation, nervousness, excitement, and so on. The scale of this event was unprecedented. It was the biggest storyline event in the 3 versions of Galaxy, and no player was willing to miss it. In the Bloodshed Lands camp, there was also a group of players present. There were about 1,000 of them, and they were the defectors led by Summer Nightflower. This was what the army players called them on the forums. Looking at the Black Star Corps fleet in the distance, Summer Nightflower had mixed feelings. He had once been one of them as well. The way Summer Nightflower saw it, the battle between the Bloodshed Land and the leader of the Black Star Corps might be the last chance to confirm his guess. The Mercenary League had also sent people to the scene to watch the battle, occupying a VIP seat with a wide view. This is unprecedented. How many years has it been since something like this happened in the Shattered Star Ring? In the private chat channel of the Mercenary League, Gireja could not help but sigh. He was the leader of the Sky Ring Army and one of the upper echelons of the Mercenary League. I remember that the last time a Beyond Grade publicly challenged a battle was 276 years ago, when Austin sparred with someone from the previous generation of a Shattered Star Ring, another army commander said. 200 years ago. TSK. Back then, I was still an officer of the Elf Palace's guerrilla army. Underworld Feather casually tossed a piece of dried meat from an unknown creature in her mouth and said while chewing, "I bet you definitely didn't have such a weird fetish 200 years ago." Giraja could not help but look at the dried meat in Underworld Feather's hand. "What weird fetish? I'm a gourmet." Underworld Feather rolled her eyes. Giraja shook his head and ignored her. "Since Black Star has become a Beyond Grade A, no matter what the result of this battle is, I have to invite him to be the chief director of the Mercenary League. Everyone will have more opportunities to develop under his name." All the army commanders nodded, and no one had any objections. The Mercenary League was also a well-known large organization in the Shattered Star Ring, and the Black Star Corps was one of the founders. No one minded Black Star becoming the leader of the Mercenary League in name. In fact, the Mercenary League would have a better future with the name of a Beyond Grade A Super. There are also many organizations like the Mercenary League that had come to support Han Shao, such as the Star Beast organization and the various financial groups. At this moment, under everyone's gazes, a blue whirlpool-like teleportation gate suddenly appeared in the middle of the empty battlefield, expanding rapidly. "It's finally here." Wah! At this moment, everyone present was in an uproar. The suppressed excitement in everyone's hearts was instantly ignited. Chapter 767. The spectators in every spaceship stopped chatting and stared at the blue teleportation gate that suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield. The wormhole-like teleportation gate continued to expand as though there was no limit. The largest spaceship on the battlefield was the armed satellite base of the Black Star Corps, and the size of the teleportation gate exceeded the size of the satellite base. The radars of all the spaceships buzzed as they detected the rapidly rising energy waves. The next moment, a majestic, enormous castle slowly squeezed out of the teleportation gate, wrapped in a colorful magic shield. The spherical translucent shield was covered with countless runic circles made of light patterns. The complicated magic circles looked as gorgeous as decorations and were flickering at a breathing rate, constantly absorbing the dark energy of the universe to refine energy for the castle. The hidden red robe, Abby's treasure, the palace of hidden spells. Austin is here. He actually teleported his base here. That's too high profile. Is he here to watch the battle or to help one side? Although the first to arrive was the only Beyond Grade A in the Shattered Star Ring who had nothing to do with this battle, the spectators were still excited. Even Austin was here, which meant that 5 Beyond Grade As would be gathered together for the first time. It was unprecedented. This guy is here to join the fun too? Ralph was shocked. He was afraid that Austin would come to disrupt the situation. The commander of the Bloodshed Land troops was Jode, and his heart was also in his throat. I wonder if Austin is a friend or foe. Jode swallowed. The one who contacted Austin privately was Cisco, so he did not know why Austin was here. The Palace of Hidden Spells quickly arrived, and the teleportation gate shrunk rapidly, turning into a dot of light and disappearing. Austin's base was a universal treasure Beyond Grade A Mage Tower. He had carved a large number of space teleportation arrays, which allowed him to perform long-distance teleportation through dimension travel. Countless mages living in the Palace of Hidden Spells walked out of the castle, came to the open platforms, and gathered to watch the battle. Austin led the Forbidden Sorcerer troops and appeared above the Palace of Hidden Spells, hovering in the air. He controlled the Palace of Hidden Spells to fly to a good position at the edge of the battlefield while observing the endless group of spaceships with interest. Fisk, why am I the first to arrive? These youngsters nowadays have no concept of time at all. Austin's chubby little hand held his chin as he lamented. He had rejected both parties' requests to form an alliance. This time, he had specially come to watch the battle. In order to watch the show comfortably, he had even moved his hometown here. It could be said that he was a high-end, grand, and high-class shut-in. While countless people were whispering to each other and guessing Austin's purpose for coming, a commotion was spreading at the edge of the fleet far away. A huge fleet appeared and headed toward the battlefield. When the spectators saw the insignia of this fleet, they were all shocked and hurriedly drove their spaceships to make way. The outer armor of the spaceships of this fleet was engraved with an emblem that everyone in the universe knew. It was the national emblem of the universal civilization, the Arcane Church. The Arcane Church also came. This was a part of the Arcane Church's garrison in the Shattered Star Ring. The small frigates were all standard ships of the Arcane Church, mainly in the shape of a disc. They were very thin, black, and dark purple, with matrix-like patterns engraved on them. There were 3 huge hollow holes in the hull of the ship, which were distributed in a triangular shape. A red and black ball of dark energy was floating in each hole, which was extremely dense. It was both an energy furnace and an annihilation weapon. The large flagship was in the shape of a butterfly, with a sphere in the center and hundreds of pairs of butterfly wings connected to the sides. These butterfly wings were currently in a retracted state, stacked together. It looked like there was only one pair. Although the material was metal, it was some kind of alloy with extremely good ductility, soft and light like cloth. If it entered combat mode, these butterfly wings would all open and slide along the surface of the sphere in the center, turning into the shape of a sun. This Arcane Church fleet entered the battlefield without any obstructions. A spaceship flew out, and the hatch opened. It was Cisco, the second beyond grade A to arrive. He floated in front of the Arcane Church's fleet and stared at the purple crystal fleet and Section 0 in the distance. Although his size was as small as a grain of sand compared to the huge fleet, he attracted the attention of everyone present. The countless people watching the battle sucked in a breath of cold air. Cisco is here. The Arcane Church fleet is actually moving together with him. Is this the attitude of a universal civilization? The Arcane Church was behind the star Pupil Protoss, and this was not a big secret. However, a universal civilization had not expressed their stance on this matter in the past few days and suddenly appeared at this time. It was obvious that they wanted to interfere in this battle, and no one was mentally prepared for this. Be it the spectators at the scene or the audience watching the broadcast, they were all shocked. They had originally thought that this battle was mainly a conflict between Beyond Grade but now that a universal civilization had interfered, the situation instantly became complicated. This is not good. The Arcane Church is here to help Cisco. Ralph immediately acted as if he was facing a great enemy. This Arcane Church fleet was extremely powerful and was enough to fight against Purple Crystal and Section 0. Furthermore, this was a universal civilization, so they did not dare to make a move. On the other side, Jode could not help but feel apprehensive. Originally, the Star Pupil Protoss race was too far away and did not send any reinforcements. Almost everyone thought that Cisco had come alone. However, the appearance of the Arcane Church made Cisco the strongest person present. Because of the special status of a universal civilization, all the organizations present kept quiet out of fear. However, before everyone could accept the changes in the situation, another wave of waves rose up and another fleet descended. Seeing who it was, every spectator was dumbfounded. Red Empire, another universal civilization. The spaceship technology of the Red Empire was very different from the Arcane Church. The spaceships of the Arcane Church had a magical style, while the spaceships of the Red Empire had a heavy industrial style. The spaceships of the spaceships were filled with the beauty of machinery and steel. Just looking at them from afar made one feel pressured. The Red Empire fleet squeezed into the center of the battlefield and hovered beside Clint, facing the Amethyst civilization together with the Arcane Church fleet. It looked like they were here to help the tyrant. More than 10 days ago, Zoel had agreed to the request of the Clint upper echelons to send troops to help the tyrant. Seeing that his backer was here, Jode also relaxed. He looked at the Black Star Corps with a cold smile. Do you see that, little brother? Do you have a backer? We have two here. On the other side, in the Star Diamond grade flagship, Ralph slammed his hands on the table. His face was pale, and his knees were weak. He did not expect the situation to turn out like this. The current situation was not only bad, but also hopeless. If a conflict really broke out later, how were they going to fight against two universal civilizations with their weak arms and legs? At this moment, the countless spectators who were in a daze finally regained their senses. Their hearts were filled with shock. The Red Empire and the Arcane Church are both here. Two universal civilizations are standing on the opposite side of Black Star. Black Star only has the Amethyst civilization as his backer. It looks a little too pitiful. A newbie on grade A actually has to face such a situation. He's probably in for a bad time. In everyone's eyes, the current situation was clearly two universal civilizations against Black Star. The alliance between the Tyrant and Star Pupil was too strong, and Black Star's situation took a turn for the worse. Countless people could not help but worry for Black Star. They became more and more pessimistic. This indirectly affected the various betting stations. The Tyrant's bets rose crazily. Originally, the betting companies wanted to stop the bets after Black Star and the Tyrant appeared, but now they were so scared that they immediately shut down the bets. In the Black Star Corps fleet, the millions of players had their hearts in their mouths. This was the first time they had seen a universal civilization at the peak of the galaxy, but the other party was the enemy of their own faction. The army commander looks like he's in for a bad time. Maple Moon clasped her hands together nervously. Mad Blade could not help but worry and clench his fists. Although the Black Star Corps was the main faction in the hearts of the players, under the influence of the three versions, the players had long established the impression that the universal civilizations were the overlords of the galaxy. Originally, many of the players were rather optimistic about this battle, but the current situation made them unable to laugh. The situation was not good. Many of them were shaken. The future version would most likely revolve around the universal civilizations, but now, the Black Star Corps had become the enemy of the universal civilizations. This was not a good sign. On the other hand, Summer Night Flower on the Bloodshed Land side was filled with joy. The reason he had high hopes for the Bloodshed Land was because this organization had a way to rise and could be used as a springboard to join the Red Empire. Above the Black Star Corps, only the Amethyst civilization could not be compared. At this moment, the appearance of the Red Empire fleet was like a shot of adrenaline, and Summer Night Flower regained a lot of confidence in his conjecture. Do you see that? This is the limitation of faction development that I was talking about. I've emphasized since the beginning that you can't be confused by the benefits in front of you, like the Black Star Corps players. You have to have a long-term vision, like me, to make the right choice. Summer Night Flower became lively again and spoke to the players around him with a smile. At the same time, in the flagship of the Black Star Corps, the officers all had solemn expressions, and no one spoke. Loggy sighed and broke the silence. Sigh. It seems like I'm going to die here today. In the past, there would always be people who would tease Loggy about his depression, but now, all the officers pursed their lips, and no one replied. Even the officers could not help but become pessimistic. They had not forgotten that their army commander was going to face two challenges. Even if they survived the Tyrant, there was still Cisco coming up to force Black Star to hand over the evolution cube. No matter how they thought about it, they felt that Han Zhao's best choice was to admit defeat and hand over the evolution cube. There were two universal civilizations eyeing them covetously, and the organizations behind them far exceeded theirs. They could not think of any reason why the army would forcefully keep the evolution cube. If he insists, a Calamity-grade officer could not help but speak. Shut up. Sylvia glared at him. What we have to do is follow the army commander's decision. What are you trying to say? Everyone looked at each other. Other than Herluz and the others who had the most experience, most of the officers who had joined the army later prayed in their hearts. I hope Black Star doesn't lose his mind. At this time, a Bloodshed Land spaceship flew over from afar and arrived at the center of the battlefield. Heber had finally arrived. His mountain-like body was wearing heavy armor as he floated in the center of the battlefield. All the radars of the spaceships detected the terrifying energy boiling in his body, as though he was a walking supernova. Heber turned around and glanced at Cisco, warning him not to disturb his plan. Psyker's face was expressionless as he retreated some distance. The tyrant is here too. Only Black Star and the Dragon Emperor are left. Sigh, they're here. The spectators hurriedly looked over and saw a Black Star fleet escorting Floating Dragon Island toward them. As Floating Dragon Island could not travel that fast, Han Xiao and Ames were the last to arrive. The surrounding spaceships all made way for the enormous Floating Dragon Island to pass through and enter the battlefield smoothly. Everyone is finally here. Everyone was energized. Ames slowly rose into the air and flew above Floating Dragon Island. At this time, Han Xiao also flew out from the main ship. The two of them faced off against Heber and Cisco from afar. Not far away was Austin, who was watching the show. Black Star had filled in the gap of the mechanic class. The 5 beyond grade, as of the Shattered Star Ring, happened to be supers of different classes. The countless spectators suddenly felt a sense of ritual, as though they were the witnesses. Han Xiao turned around and exchanged glances with Ames. They nodded to each other. Then he glanced at the crowd, and his mouth could not help but twitch. Why are there so many people, and they're so close? Aren't they afraid that we'll randomly kill a few lucky spectators? Han Xiao raised his head and glanced at the Palace of Hidden Spells. He had nothing to say to this old man, so he shook his head and looked at Heber. After sizing him up, he connected to the tyrant's communicator, and his voice sounded in Heber's armor. I'm here. Little Tai Tai. How do you want to fight? What did you call me? Heber did not react in time. I'll call you whatever I want. Han Xiao raised his brows and chuckled. Heber could not be bothered to reply and said condescendingly, Black Star, I've had high hopes for you since more than 10 years ago. It proves that my eyes were right. Unfortunately, you rejected my invitation and made the wrong decision. I gave you a chance, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Han Xiao curled his lips. Don't say such useless things. Didn't you want to use me to establish your authority today? That's right. Heber did not hide anything. You were able to survive until now because you didn't have any value to me in the past. You didn't disappoint me and kept your life until today so that I can use your blood to color my throne. After reaching the beyond Grade A realm, only by killing those of the same level would one be able to gain a greater reputation in the galaxy. This was the best way to increase one's status, and this had always been the tyrant's goal. In his eyes, as long as his reputation grew, there would be an endless stream of talents joining him. However, the other 3 beyond grade, as in the Shattered Star Ring, were not easy to deal with, and there was no reason for him to attack. Even Ames, whose abilities were countered by him, had top-notch survival abilities. Thus, he decided to raise a beyond Grade A enemy and kill him before he could grow up. He would step on the enemy's corpse and establish his name as the tyrant. And Han Xiao was the target he had chosen. Since he likes to raise pigs so much, be careful not to be killed by them. Han Xiao could not help but shake his head. At this time, a new notification popped up on the interface. You have triggered the Grade S mission, Tyrant Heber. Mission introduction. Beyond grade, as are the top experts standing at the peak of the galaxy. They have unparalleled strength, and Heber is one of them. Are you sure you want to fight him? Mission requirements. Last as long as possible in the hands of Heber. Combat mode is unlimited. You can only leave combat for a maximum of 30 minutes. If you exceed this limit, the mission will enter the final phase. There is no limit to the number of times you can leave combat. Reward. This mission reward is in stages. You will receive a corresponding reward for every requirement you meet. Only 1% of the time you leave combat will be counted into the judgment time. Last for 10 seconds. 10,000 experience lasts for 30 seconds. 23,000 experience lasts for 1 minute. 45,000 experience lasts for 2 minutes. 70,000 experience lasts for 3 minutes. 90,000 experience plus 1 legendary point lasts for 5 minutes. Character Summon Card. Tyrant Heber, 3/0 experience. Lasts for 20 minutes. Randomly draw a talent or ability from the Tyrant. 8/5/0/0 experience. +1 legendary point. It's actually such a mission. Han Zhao's eye sparkled. A beyond grade, it was a true big boss, an insurmountable mountain. Even if the players had his current level, they would not be able to defeat a beyond grade A with a full set of molding talents. The only difference was how long they could last. In the later versions of his previous life, there were also players who challenged a beyond grade A, and some of them had a chance of triggering a special grade S mission. The reward would be given according to how long the players could last in the hands of the boss. In his previous life, it was extremely difficult for most players to last even a minute in a head-on battle with a beyond grade A. The only way was to leave combat and kite. Because only 1% of the time left combat was counted, this meant that each time they left combat, they would only gain 18 seconds of judgment time. To the players, if they wanted to complete the requirement of lasting 20 minutes, they would have to leave combat more than 60 times and not be caught by a beyond grade A within 30 minutes. In other words, they would have to stall a beyond grade A for a total of 30 hours. Han Xiao had also challenged a beyond grade A before, and his best result was only a few minutes. However, the evaluation of the interface mission had always been based on the strength of the players, and Han Xiao was the only exception. He did not even need to leave combat. He could directly face the boss head-on. With his endurance, 20 minutes was just enough for him to warm up. Han Xiao exhaled, and the blue-gold mechanical force suddenly exploded. He opened his arms, clenched his fists, and punched the sides of his body as though he was holding lightning. A secondary dimension that had been completely explored in the past 10 days suddenly opened up behind him. Looking around, it was filled with the black mass of the Mech Legion. There seemed to be no end to them. Emperor Mechanic, Secondary Dimension Army. The Emperor personally led the army into battle. Seeing this, Heber twisted his neck, and flames erupted from his body like a supernova, dazzling like a star. The next moment, the Mech Legion surged out and welcomed a star-like figure. Today is the New Year's Eve, so I finished writing it in advance and posted it. I'm begging for the monthly votes of the new year tomorrow. Also, I wish you all a new start in 2019. Good luck, prosperity, prosperity, prosperity. Another year. Chapter 768. In more than 10 days, Han Zhao's Mech Legion had already recovered to the size of millions. All the models had been strengthened, and the huge army blocked in front of Heber. All kinds of long-range weapons were fired at Heber. Psionic particle cannons and dark energy annihilation rays formed a dazzling rain of light that bathed Heber. The pugilist flames all over Heber's body swelled into a huge reddish-gold light ball with a diameter of several thousand meters, forming his protective energy. It pushed his mountain-like body forward, dragging a long flame tail behind him. He was like a comet going against the black tide. In the eyes of the countless spectators, this scene gave rise to a domineering feeling that even though there were tens of thousands of people, he would still press on. The storm of long-range attacks bombarded Heber's protective energy shield, leaving behind clusters of expanding energy balls in his path. Withstanding the destructive focus fire, Heber charged into the Mech Legion's formation, smashing through the layers of defense formed by the mechanical soldiers and shooting toward Han Xiao. He chose to charge indirectly because he wanted to use his strength to attack the enemy's weakness, using close combat to quickly finish off Han Xiao. As expected of a beyond grade A pugilist. What terrifying tankiness! Han Xiao glanced at the combat information and raised his brows. Heber's level, attributes, and health were all question marks. The interface showed that several molding grade abilities on Heber's body had been triggered. They were low damage immunity, true damage immunity, fixed damage reduction, the huge damage reduction brought by super toughness, and the damage reduction of a beyond grade A pugilist protective energy shield. This meant that Heber was immune to true damage and normal attacks that did not exceed a certain limit. The limit was equivalent to that of an ordinary calamity grade. Only explosive attacks could cause actual damage to Heber. Due to the special fixed damage reduction, only the damage that exceeded the limit would be calculated. If the limit of damage immunity was 100 and you dealt 110 points of damage, it would be 110 minus 100 points. A part of this 10 points of damage would be shared by the energy shield, and the rest would be reduced by the molding grade resistance talent. After so many layers of reduction, the final number was the actual damage that Heber had suffered. The most frightening thing was that Heber's recovery ability was not bad either. Although it was far inferior to his, it still provided a considerable amount of endurance. Thick, hard, and durable. This was a true beyond grade A meat shield. As expected of the Ironhead brat, who easily pierced through planets with his physical body, Han Zhao's eyes narrowed. He had long known that this would be a tough battle. Hardaway also had two molding talents, true damage immunity and low damage immunity. However, he was an Esper and had only one ability, so his attack power was not high. Heber was clearly more well-rounded. As a beyond grade A pugilist, he was not only a meat shield, but also a brute with shocking destructive power. Therefore, Han Xiao was not interested in fighting a beyond grade A pugilist. Even though he was quite tanky himself, the difference between the main attribute and the secondary attribute of a beyond grade A pugilist was like a chasm. The difference between their attributes was too great, and close combat was simply asking for trouble. Seeing Heber's sudden appearance, he immediately guessed that Heber wanted to end the battle quickly and secretly curled his lips. Although this was the correct tactic for pugilists to use against mechanics, it also meant that the tyrant was very confident in his destructive power. Clearly, he did not care about the indestructible body title that he had earned at the calamity grade. Do you think it's that easy to end the battle quickly? Han Xiao snorted coldly and casually threw a luck curse at Heber. It did not matter if it worked or not. He would just throw it away first. He would use different tactics against different opponents and immediately kite them. His main body would rely on his speed to move around and control the Mech Legion to surround Heber. The strengthened Mech Legion, after becoming a beyond grade, it had even stronger performance. With the bonus of his machinery affinity, hundreds to thousands of ordinary mechanical soldiers would be able to deal with a calamity grade. Furthermore, with the endurance provided by advanced machinery construction, he was not afraid of a battle of attrition. Most importantly, most of the mechanical soldiers would be able to break through Heber's defense. Even if the actual damage was reduced by a lot, the size of the army was still there. Even against a bug-level meat shield like Heber, they would still be able to deal a lot of damage to Heber. This was the advantage of the army style against any class. As the mechanical soldiers grew stronger, the human wave tactic would always be able to pose a threat to those of the same level. Han Xiaoxi knew that there were no shortcuts when facing an opponent like the tyrant. He could only use the human wave tactic to grind down the iron rod into a needle. The energy of a mechanical suit flowed into the thrusters, and Han Xiao turned into a stream of light and moved around. The vast battlefield had more than enough space for him to open up a battle line. Heber's every move was filled with powerful flames, like a star releasing energy, blowing up piles of mechanical soldiers. However, the broken mechanical soldiers quickly reformed under the guidance of Han Zhao's mechanical force. They were not afraid of death and constantly changed their formation to intercept him. As a beyond grade, a Han Xiao had all sorts of mechanical equipment to provide him with power, so his speed was much faster. Although Heber's physical body was not slow, it was much more cumbersome in comparison, making it difficult for him to close the distance. This battle will drag on for too long. Heber smashed a giant soldier with a punch and frowned. There had not been a beyond grade A mechanic in the Shattered Star Ring for many years, so Heber did not have much experience fighting mechanics of the same level. However, he knew that the power of a mechanic came from knowledge and time. Black Star had only advanced for less than 2 months, so he had limited time to learn. He did not have enough time to expand his mechanical army, so he was still young and the easiest to deal with. Therefore, what Heber wanted was a one-sided battle, not a battle of attrition. I had to put in more effort. Heber took a deep breath. What he inhaled was not air, but the dark energy that was everywhere in the universe. Every cell of his was like a bottomless pit, absorbing the dark energy like it was thirsty and then dividing rapidly. The next moment, his mountain-like body expanded and his armor exploded. He turned into a giant dozens of meters tall and entered the second stage. He was also a unique beyond grade A species. Furthermore, when a pugilist advanced to beyond grade A, he would basically have a special characteristic, a genetic limiter that removed the physical body. In other words, there was theoretically no limit to the strength of his body. Heber stretched out his palm, aimed at Han Xiao in the distance, and shook his head. You are indeed talented. If given time, you might have a chance to become an existence like the Mecha Empire in the future. What a pity. The next moment, everyone's vision turned white. A dazzling light shot out from Heber's palm. This shockwave blast was extremely fast, and it was not as simple as shooting out. It could be remotely controlled by Heber and had a tracking effect. Han Xiao dodged more than 10 times, but he was still hit by the beam of light. His whole body was bathed in reddish-gold pugilist flames. Assessing energy level. Failed. Your energy level is lower than the opponent. You have entered the energy lock state. You are unable to release energy. Han Xiao was shocked. The pugilist flames around him exerted a suppressive force that caused the mechanical force in his body to become completely silent. It shrunk in his cells, unable to be released. His mechanical force connection with the mechanical army was cut off. He tried to break through the pugilist flames around him, but he was met with a terrifying resistance. His body moved extremely slowly, almost as if he was fixed in the reddish-gold beam of light. This is Han Xiao's pupils constricted. Come here. Heber pulled with his palm, and the reddish-gold beam of light quickly shrunk, pulling Han Xiao in the distance toward him. Pugilists tempered and refined their own energy. Energy was an extension of their limbs and could be bestowed with many attributes. In terms of the density of their energy, pugilists were at the top of the 5 major supersystems. They were masters of using energy. To pugilists, the so-called skills were different pugilist moves. There were more than 100 billion pugilist schools in the universe, and the number of moves was endless. This move was to compress one's pugilist energy and release a shockwave that would form a special energy field after hitting the target. Using one's own pugilist energy to suppress the target's pugilist energy was like laying down layers of barriers around the target's pugilist energy, forcibly blocking the target's pugilist energy within the body. This was a kind of pugilist control technique. Unless one's energy level was higher than or equal to Heber's, there was no way to avoid it. Heber was a veteran beyond grade A who had been around for many years, and his energy level was unfathomable. The Mech Legion focused their fire on Heber under the control of the artificial intelligence. However, without Han Xiao's mechanical force bonus, they could not even break through Heber's defense. The hovering guard behind Han Xiao released a tractor beam, wanting to pull him out of the reddish-gold beam of light. However, Heber's arm muscles bulged, and he injected more energy into the beam of light. Countless light bullets shot out from the reddish-gold beam of light, blowing up any machinery that approached. Han Xiao thought quickly. I have to think of a simple way to break this move. Heber definitely won't only use it once. The cooldown for Void Hyperdrive is too long. I can escape once, but I can't escape a second time. Suddenly, he had an idea and activated the talent that he had not used for a long time. Chaos Body Release. His entire person turned into a gray mist, turning into his chaos body state. He then used Void Hyperdrive to leave the reddish-gold beam of light and return to his human form. The talent of the Void Race. Heber had seen Han Xiao's information and was not surprised. According to the information, Black Star's Void Hyperdrive had a cooldown of a few minutes. Now that he had used it, it was equivalent to him losing a trump card. However, What the outside world did not know was that when Han Xiao used talents like Void Hyperdrive in his Chaos body state, the cooldown would be reduced to less than 10 seconds. This was his talent when he was a Chaos Observer. At that time, he was not as famous as he was now, and he rarely revealed this ability in front of outsiders. Han Xiao released his mechanical force to link the Mech Legion again and sighed in his heart. He originally wanted to rely on his own strength to contend with the tyrant, but now it seemed that there was indeed a certain gap between him and Heber. With his tankiness, his life would not be in danger, but the situation would definitely be very passive. Since he had agreed to a battle in front of so many people, Han Xiao did not want to be suppressed by Heber the entire time. I originally wanted to save some, but it seems like I can't. Han Xiao licked his lips, opened the interface, and activated an item. Character Summon Card, Reynold. Perfect mechanical sense. Han Xiao's eyes suddenly opened wide, and lightning flashed in his pupils. The mechanical force flowing through the mechanical soldiers became dazzling, and a blue-gold light seeped out from the gaps in the mechanical soldiers. At this moment, Han Xiao's machinery affinity skyrocketed, increasing the strength of the Mech Legion by a full one. For times, seeing this, Heber's movements paused, and his eyes were filled with doubt. It seemed a little different. So this is the strength of a beyond grade A, too strong. The spectators at the scene stared at the two of them in shock. Many of them only knew the concept of beyond grade as, but they had never personally witnessed a battle between beyond grade as. At this moment, they were dazzled. His Excellency Tyrant is so charming. Jode had an excited look on his face. As the saying went, it was easier to attract the same sex if one had a good physique. Most of the pugilists in the Bloodshed Land worshipped the Tyrant, and seeing the Tyrant display his strength, the people of the Bloodshed Land were extremely excited. On the other hand, the Amethyst civilization and some of the surrounding organizations were all worried for Han Xiao. Ames did not interfere in the battle between the two of them. This was an arranged battle, and since Han Xiao did not say anything, there was no need for her to deal with the Tyrant. At this moment, Ames was staring at Cisco closely. Han Xiao had told her that if Cisco made any strange movements, it was best to stop him immediately. Cisco glanced at Ames, then turned his gaze to the battlefield and narrowed his eyes. Black Star's strength has improved compared to when he fought me, but he's still not a match for the Tyrant. It's inevitable that he'll be at a disadvantage, Cisco nodded. The current situation was not out of his expectations. He knew how strong the Tyrant was, and although Black Star was on par with him, it did not mean that he could fight the Tyrant to a draw. The abilities of Beyond Grade, as were different, and countered each other. Cisco was not afraid of the Tyrant, because mental attacks were the Tyrant's weakness, but he was also afraid of the Tyrant's strength. The two of them did not interfere with each other. However, Black Star could not target the Tyrant's weakness like he could, and could only fight head-on. The Tyrant's strength naturally exceeded that of a new Beyond Grade A Super. If it was a normal new Beyond Grade, the Tyrant might have really killed him. However, Cisco had fought with Black Star before, so he was the only one who knew about Black Star's strength and did not reveal it to the Tyrant. Black Star also has a body that's extremely durable even among Beyond Grade, as not much weaker than Heber's. He should be able to last for a long time. They're still testing each other. When their condition deteriorates, it'll be time for me to make my move. With that thought, Cisco turned around and looked at the Arcane Church's flagship behind him. He knew that in the flagship's command room, the fleet commander was waiting for his signal. Right at this moment, a meteor-like figure flashed past his vision and flew into the Bloodshed Lands formation not far away, smashing 7 or 8 spaceships. Psyker turned his head to look and was immediately shocked. The one who was sent flying was the Tyrant? Cisco was a little stunned. He turned around and looked at Han Xiao, who had activated his perfect mechanical sense. It seems like I still underestimated you. A new year has begun. Happy New Year, brothers. P.S. You can't write onomatopoeia in battles in the universe. It feels like something is missing. Chapter 769. At this time, Han Zhao's energy level suddenly increased, and the power of the Mech Legion increased. Heber was caught off guard and was sent flying by a series of particle cannons. Heber's rising momentum was interrupted, and this made the countless spectators excited. Black Star was actually hiding such strength. Cisco's expression changed slightly. The energy level Han Zhao released at this time surprised him. He was very sure that Black Star did not have such strength when they fought more than a month ago. Is this his trump card? Ims could not help but glance at Han Zhao, and a look of surprise flashed across her eyes. Seeing that their boss had created a gap in their formation, Jode's expression changed. The excitement of the Bloodshed Land officers was instantly extinguished. Although Heber only suffered a small loss, the opponent was only a new beyond grade A. The Bloodshed Land officers originally thought that the tyrant would have the upper hand and beat Black Star into a sorry state. However, the situation before their eyes shocked them. The Mech Legion chased after him, and this time, Heber stabilized his body. His expression was solemn, and he was a little angry that he had suffered a small loss without being prepared. He punched out with a bang, sending out thick martial Dao waves. An authentic star-shaking fist went up against the mechanical army. The mechanical soldiers in charge of defense moved from the back to the front, and they released psionic energy, forming a huge psionic shield in front of the army. The star-shaking punch hit the psionic shield, and a dazzling reddish-gold light expanded rapidly like a supernova explosion. Everyone was blinded by the light, and their vision was completely white. The Mech Legion was stopped by the star-shaking punch, and Heber took the opportunity to rush out. He circled around and moved the battlefield back to the Bloodshed Lands formation. Han Zhao followed closely behind, controlling the Mech Legion to entangle with him once again. The Mech Legion, which was enhanced by perfect mechanical sense, had a huge increase in both offense and defense, and they were locked in battle with Heber. Millions of mechanical soldiers surrounded one person, and the light of psionic energy flashed again and again on the battlefield. Heber suddenly slowed down, enduring the bombardment, and once again used energy lock on Han Zhao. However, this time, Han Zhao had experience and escaped the control of the void jump punch with his chaos body, which surprised Heber. He thought that Han Zhao's void jump was still on cooldown. The same trick is useless against me. Han Zhao secretly smiled. Heber frowned, knowing that he had made a mistake. His control skill was broken, and he could only patiently deal with the Mech Legion while thinking of other ways. Punches, kicks, and shockwaves shot out in all directions. The mechanical soldiers were severely damaged, and some were even killed instantly. Heber was not completely unscathed either. Wounds gradually appeared on his mountain-like body. There were cuts made by the sharp blades and burn marks from the particle cannons. He used his energy to increase the activity of his cells, and the old wounds healed continuously, but new wounds also appeared continuously. The mechanical soldiers that were destroyed by him were repaired by Han Zhao time and time again with waste modification and advanced machinery construction. Perfect mechanical sense is truly a godly ability. Feeling a mechanical force flowing in his body, Han Xiaoxin was excited. The 4 times machinery affinity bonus was an overpowered molding grade ability, and the damage that the Mech Legion dealt to Heber was obviously on another level. The difference in strength between him and the tyrant was more than made up for by perfect mechanical sense. Unfortunately, this molding ability came from Reynolds' character summon card and was not his own ability. He had a total of 3 chances to use it, and this was the second time. After fighting for a while, Heber's expression became more and more solemn. He originally thought that no matter how talented a new beyond grade A was, the upper limit of their combat strength would not be too ridiculous. However, Han Zhao's current combat strength had broken this logic. His strength had suddenly skyrocketed, and the pressure that the mechanical army brought to him had also increased. The situation suddenly became evenly matched. Heber's intention to end the battle quickly was crushed, and he was forced to fight a protracted battle where he had to dismantle machines with his bare hands. It was a battle of attrition. Attrition battles were the strength of the army-style mechanic, and Heber knew that the battle was dragged into Black Star's rhythm. If this continued, the situation would not be good for him. He wanted to establish his dominance, but if he was evenly matched with Black Star, the situation would be reversed. At that time, not only would he not be able to achieve his goal of establishing dominance, he would also lose his reputation and be used as a stepping stone. This would instead make Black Star famous. Black Star was a new beyond grade, a super, and lacked a strong foundation, so it was definitely a positive thing for him to fight to a draw with a famous veteran like him. It was like trying to steal a chicken, only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Furthermore, he was the one who initiated the battle. If he could not do anything to Black Star and had to leave with his tail between his legs, it would definitely be extremely embarrassing. Close combat was the trump card of a pugilist. Although Heber also had long-range attacks like the Star-Shaking Fist, a beyond grade A mechanic had too many ways to block long-range attacks. If he wanted to heavily injure Black Star, the only way was to give Black Star a series of explosive attacks in close combat. Heber's close combat damage was extremely terrifying. Looking at all the beyond grade, as in the entire galaxy, not a single one of them could remain unscathed after being hit by a beyond grade A pugilist. Even Heber did not dare take a series of attacks from a pugilist of the same level. He did have a move that could allow him to instantly close in, but this move could only be used once after a long interval. Black Star had so many evasion and control skills, so he could easily increase the distance between them again, which made him feel quite troubled. Slippery fellow. Heber frowned. The opportunity to close in was fleeting, so he had to wait for the next opportunity. Heber and the Mech Legion fought fiercely. Explosions lit up the vision of the spectators time and time again, and almost all the spectator spaceship radars kept repeating the warning. High energy reaction detected. Please leave immediately. Detected. This meant that Han Xiao and Heber were fighting in space. If the battlefield was a planet, the two of them would have destroyed it long ago. A portion of the particle cannons missed and shot in all directions. The spectators in the front row hurriedly retreated to avoid the aftershocks, leaving more space for the two of them to fight. The situation seems to have been evened out. Black Star is actually evenly matched with the Tyrant. I thought he would be at a disadvantage. Now, the Tyrant seems to be in a passive position. Countless spectators were shocked, and their evaluation of Black Star was constantly refreshed. Seeing that Han Xiao had stabilized himself, the Black Star core players became excited. Black Star is using kiting tactics to control the situation, and the only way for the Tyrant to break out of this situation is to close in. However, it seems that he is unable to cross the strategic depth of the mechanical army. In the army's battleship, Hao Tian analyzed the situation with a deep voice. As a pro player, although his level was not high, it did not hinder his PK vision. Mad Blade pondered and said, "Pugilists are good at close combat. As long as the army commander keeps using kiting tactics, he will be invincible, provided that the Mech Legion can sustain the consumption." That's what I think. Port Bun nodded. However, at this time, something unexpected happened in the battle. The expressions of Hao Tian, Mad Blade, and the others changed drastically. Not good. The Mech Legion focused their fire and exploded a dazzling energy cluster, affecting everyone's vision. At this time, Heber suddenly disappeared from the encirclement of the mechanical army. The next moment, he appeared behind Han Xiao and instantly closed in. He really came. Han Xiao's eyes flashed. He had expected this. He knew that Heber definitely had a pugilist skill that allowed him to teleport, so he had been prepared. However, he had to admit that Heber's timing was not bad. Heber has used race talent, Giant's Gaze, on you. You have entered Force Silent state. All skills are frozen. Duration, 0, 3 seconds. Han Zhao's pupils constricted. He cannot break the Force Silent skill. Heber had waited until now to use it, and he was caught off guard. This silence interrupted his void hyperdrive and made him stay where he was. Heber has used Force Fist, Molecular Shock on you. Authentication in progress. Authentication failed. Your STR is more than 1,000 points lower than the opponent. This is not good, Han Xiao thought to himself. He had been avoiding the combo attacks of the pugilist, but Heber's methods were not easy to deal with. Now, he was in a passive position. In the next moment, reddish-gold fists rained down on his body. The speed of the fists was so fast that they left behind countless afterimages. Dents were left on the surface of the mech, and the air inside the mech leaked out. Dong, dong, dong. His eardrums vibrated, and the dull sounds echoed in his body. Each of Heber's attacks was a different pugilist skill. Once he got close and successfully used the first control skill, he would be able to use consecutive control skills. Due to the double advantage of strength and dexterity, control skills were usually successful. The terrifying damage from the combo caused Battle Tiger's mechanical suit and health to drop rapidly. Cold, murderous intent appeared in Heber's eyes. Finally, he found an opportunity. He did not hesitate to use all his strength, preparing to severely injure or even kill Han Xiao directly. The development of the battle made the expressions of countless people change drastically. Black Star is in danger, Austin mumbled. Being controlled by Heber was enough to threaten the life of a beyond grade A super. A beyond grade A pugilist had explosive power, and as long as their attributes were superior, they would be able to maintain a combo. If they could not escape from the control, they might even be killed in one combo. Ims could not help but look over. Chance! At this moment, Cisco suddenly moved. He charged into the battlefield at high speed and headed straight for Han Xiao. Ames's attention was distracted, and she was slower by a beat. Seeing this, anger appeared in her eyes. She was about to raise her hand and release a force field to drag Cisco back, when suddenly, the arcane church fleet opened fire. Highly concentrated annihilation rays shot toward Ames. Ames did not expect the fleet to suddenly attack. She hurriedly turned around and set up a force field defense in front of her, blocking the fleet's attacks. With this distraction, Cisco took the opportunity to close in on Han Xiao and Heber. Black Star is being controlled by the tyrant. This is the best time to snatch the evolution cube. The sudden change in the situation shocked everyone. In everyone's eyes, the Arcane Church had broken the rules and used their fleet to restrain Ames while Cisco attacked together with Heber. The two beyond grade as surrounded Black Star. It was as if Black Star was in a desperate situation. Teacher, Black Star, Army Commander, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.